Before me floated 18 rewards. By the law of every dungeon, I could take one. The Rat King's Fang would increase my speed. The endurance elixir might make my body useful. For the first time in 5 years, a skill stone promised a real combat dash. The kind I had watched stronger hunters use while I carried their packs, and tried not to bleed on their boots. That morning, the Grey Wolves had thrown me out, called me a useless backpack, and refused to pay me for my last 2 raids. My younger sister was waiting at home, and I had enough money for 3 more days of her medicine. One reward mattered too much. I reached for the endurance elixir. The small green bottle dissolved into light and entered my storage. Then, a new line appeared beneath the ordinary system window. 17 rewards are scheduled for destruction. Unique function awakened. Full collection. Collect all remaining rewards? I looked at the sword, the armor, the cores, the potions, the golden crown, and even the Rat King's ridiculous little stone throne. Then, I pressed yes. When the light faded, all 18 rewards were gone. They had not been destroyed. They had become mine. Ren Hale stood in the empty treasure chamber for several seconds, waiting for an error message. None came. Metal scraped across stone, somewhere beyond the arched doorway. 3 floors still separated him from the exit, and blood had soaked the left side of his borrowed jacket until the fabric clung coldly to his ribs. The treasure chamber had been warm when it opened. Now the blue flames in its wall sconces were shrinking one by one, and the dungeon was beginning to reclaim the rooms that no longer served a living boss. Ren lifted his right hand. The familiar storage panel opened in 2 sections. The ordinary personal compartment still held 2 bandages, a dented cooking pot, and a folded receipt he kept because throwing away paper felt wasteful. Like every hunter's basic inventory, that compartment had strict limits on weight and volume. Beneath it, a new borderless compartment marked Full Collection contained 18 icons. The stone throne occupied no measurable space there. The new compartment had no visible limit. Ren stared at it. "Of course you took the throne," he murmured. The system did not answer. It never had. Another scrape sounded in the passage, closer this time. Ren selected the weakest healing potion. A thumb-sized red vial appeared in his palm without force or momentum, exactly within reach. He pulled the cork with his teeth and drank. Heat spread through his torn side. The potion closed the deepest part of the wound, but the muscles still protested when he bent. The better potions remained untouched. He had spent 5 years watching hunters waste expensive consumables because they panicked at the sight of blood. A person who owned only 1 miracle tended to use it too soon. A person who owned 17 new miracles could make the same mistake 17 times. He chose the Rat King's Fang instead. The black dagger appeared in his hand. Its curved edge carried a pale green line, and the leather grip tightened subtly around his fingers. It was better balanced than every weapon Ren had ever been permitted to clean. The first carrion rat lunged through the doorway. It was the size of a large dog, with gray plates growing over its shoulders. Ren's old F-rank body should have struggled with it. His legs were shaking, and his left arm was half numb, but the creature's movement was familiar. Carrion rats dipped their heads before a forward spring because the armor on their necks locked if they attacked upright. Ren stepped left as the rat launched. He caught the edge of its jaw with the new dagger, and let its own weight carry the blade through the softer tissue behind the plate. The rat struck the floor, slid, and stopped beneath the dead boss's gate. 2 more followed. Ren backed into the treasure room and kicked the loose chain he had dragged there during the boss fight. The first rat tangled its forelegs. The second climbed over it, jaws opening. Ren drove the dagger upward through the roof of its mouth, twisted free, then stamped on the trapped rat's neck until the armor separated enough for 1 clean stab. His breathing stayed ragged. The healing potion had repaired flesh, not exhaustion. The endurance elixir waited in storage. Ren considered drinking it immediately. then remembered three things Lyra Morin had once told a reckless hunter in the Grey Wolves Infirmary. Permanent elixirs changed the body's mana channels. Taking one while severely wounded could make the healing process bind around the wrong pattern. That hunter had laughed at the E-rank healer. He had spent the next month unable to close his right hand. Ren put the thought aside and moved. The dungeon's upper route wound through abandoned cisterns beneath the city. The temporary team that hired him had escaped through the emergency passage 40 minutes earlier. Their exit signatures still burned red on the raid ledger attached to Ren's registration mark. They were alive and outside. They had surrendered all rights to the treasure chamber when they crossed the gate. That fact had seemed unimportant while Ren was being crushed against a broken pillar by the Rat King's tail. Now it explained why the system had recognized him as the sole eligible survivor. It did not explain why a unique function had awakened after 5 years of raids. Ren had entered the Grey Wolves at 17 under a junior support license, which was legal from 16, and had spent all 5 years inside registered gates. The answer, if one existed, had begun in the boss hall less than an hour earlier. The Rat King had been listed as a tired F-rank nest ruler. Pell's team expected a swollen animal guarded by half a dozen ordinary rats. Instead, the creature that broke through the cistern wall had an armored spine, a tail thick as a support beam, and an E-rank mana core burning beneath its ribs. The first sweep of its tail broke the swordsman's shield. The second threw the healer into a dry channel and shattered her casting focus. Pell's team fought long enough to injure the boss's rear leg and empty most of their strongest skills. Then, the Rat King climbed the wall, crossed the ceiling, and dropped behind their formation. Pell saw the emergency passage open. He shoved Ren toward the boss. Somebody had to slow it down, he said. The order sounded almost reasonable after 5 years of hearing similar words. Ren still had the supply frame strapped to his shoulders. Its cheap load distribution room reduced the static burden while intact, which was how a thin porter could move 200 pounds of bait, rope, lamp oil, dried food, maintenance salt, and tools through a dungeon. It did nothing for impact, balance, or the straps cutting into his body. The full mass dragged him backward when the Rat King's claws struck the floor. Pell and the others ran. Ren heard the emergency door close. A moment later, the red exit marks appeared on his raid ledger. The Rat King hit him with its tail and crushed him against a pillar. One of his mismatched shoulder guards split. The supply frame snapped and scattered everything across the hall. Ren fell beside a sack of white maintenance salt. It was not kitchen salt. Cistern workers used the alkaline crystals to dry slime colonies and strip mana mold from old pipes. The warning label showed burned skin and blinded tunnel vermin. The boss came toward him on 3 good legs. Its injured rear paw left dark blood across the stones. Its whiskers moved before its head, measuring gats in the broken hall. Ren had carried maps through 17 rat nests. He knew what the fighters who mocked him had never bothered to learn. Tunnel rats trusted their whiskers more than their eyes. They hated pressurized steam. When cornered, they protected the throat before the core. He cut the maintenance sack with the edge of his bent spear. The Rat King lunged. Ren kicked the crystals into its face. White dust covered the whiskers and entered both eyes. The creature screamed, struck blindly, and tore the pillar beside Ren into chunks. One fragment opened his side. Another bent the spear almost double. Ren crawled beneath an old steam pipe while the boss clawed through the salt cloud. A rusted valve hung above him. He wrapped the fallen supply chain around the wheel, braced birth boots against the wall, and pulled. The valve refused to move. The Rat King's head emerged through the dust. Its eyes were red and streaming. It could no longer measure the narrow gap with its damaged whiskers, but it could smell Ren's blood. He pulled again. The chain cut through the skin around his right wrist. The old strap scar opened beneath it. The valve shifted 1 inch. Steam screamed from a cracked joint. The Rat King recoiled as boiling vapor struck its face. Ren released the chain, seized the broken pipe with both hands, and forced the leak toward the injured rear leg. Armor plates lifted under the sudden heat. The boss slammed its tail into the pipe. Metal tore free from the wall and struck Ren across the ribs. He hit the floor. The Rat King climbed over him, one front paw pinning the borrowed jacket. Its jaws opened wide enough to close around his chest. Ren could see the pale tissue behind the lower teeth. He could also see the supply chain caught around the exposed plates of the burned rear leg. He rolled out of the jacket, leaving the cloth beneath the paw, and crawled to the chain. Ren looped the loose end around the base of the broken pillar and pulled the chain tight as the creature charged. The burned leg caught. The Rat King's body twisted sideways. Its jaw struck the floor. Ren ran before it recovered. He stepped onto the broken pipe, used it as a ramp, and drove the bent spear downward through the soft roof of the creature's mouth. The point entered, stopped, and bent farther. The boss rose with Ren hanging from the shaft. Its claws tore lines through his side. He held on, because letting go placed him beneath the jaws. The Rat King shook its head and slammed him into the pillar once, then again. On the third impact, Ren changed his grip. Instead of trying to force the bent spear straight, he used the curve. He pulled the shaft sideways, driving the broken point behind the throat plate and toward the glowing core. The Rat King froze. A green light flashed beneath its ribs. Then, the enormous body collapsed, carrying Ren down with it. He remained pinned until the treasure door opened and the dead boss began dissolving into ash. It was the first time in 5 years that Ren had personally killed a boss, after every other registered participant had left the dungeon. He had saved people before and carried wounded hunters through boss deaths, but he had never been the sole eligible survivor responsible for the final victory. The hidden achievement had awakened full collection. Ren climbed the first stair and heard claws moving above him. He knew better than to ask questions inside a collapsing dungeon. The next floor contained 6 carrion rats and 1 bone chewer, an E-rank variant with exposed yellow teeth strong enough to bite through cheap armor. Ren found them gathered around the remains of a supply sack. The sack had belonged to the temporary captain, who had ordered Ren to carry a 200-pound load in a cheap rune frame, then complained whenever he drank from their water. The bone chewer raised its head. A strip of dried meat hung from its jaws. Ren remembered the moment the captain had shoved him toward the boss tunnel and shouted that somebody had to slow it down. The others had fled before Ren hit the floor. His fingers tightened around the fang. Anger did not make his body stronger. It did make waiting harder. Ren forced himself to count the rats, the width of the walkway, and the depth of the open cistern on the right. He selected a low-grade smoke pellet from the new loot. The pellet appeared in his left hand. He rolled it beneath the supply sack. White smoke burst outward. The smaller rats scattered toward the walls. The bone chewer charged through the center, following scent rather than sight. Ren stepped behind a rusted valve wheel and held the dagger backward along his forearm. Metal rang through the cistern. Its head snapped sideways, exposing the pulsing gland beneath its jaw. Ren cut once. The bone chewer recoiled, spraying dark blood. One of its teeth clipped his shoulder and spun him into the railing. Pain flashed down his arm. The creature recovered faster than he expected and came again with its head low. Ren had no room to sidestep. He reached into storage and summoned the Rat King's crown. The heavy gold circlet appeared in his hand. He jammed it between the bone chewer's jaws. The teeth closed on metal with a crack. The crown bent. The creature jerked in confusion. Ren drove the dagger through the injured gland. The bone chewer sagged against him, nearly taking both of them over the railing. Ren braced a boot against a valve and shoved until the body fell into the dark water below. For several seconds, the smaller rats stayed motionless. Then one lowered its head toward the crown lying on the stones. Another did the same. Ren looked from the rats to the crown. "Your standards have fallen," he told them. He picked up the crown. The last 2 floors were easier because the dungeon was dying. Walls cracked, old pipes burst, and flooded passages the monsters used. Ren moved through routes he had memorized from the survey map. stopped twice to wrap his ribs, and reached the gate with 31 seconds left on the collapse timer. The oval portal stood at the end of a maintenance tunnel. Daylight shimmered across its surface. Cold rain hit his face. The gate closed behind him with a sound like a deep breath. 3 association officers looked up from the barricade. The temporary team stood beneath an awning 20 yards away. Their captain, a narrow-faced D-rank named Pell, had a blanket around his shoulders and a paper cup in his hand. Pell dropped the cup. Ren's borrowed armor was torn. His dark hair had fallen over his eyes, except for the broad silver streak above the left one, the old mark of a mana burn. His cracked glasses hung from one ear. Blood covered his side. His boots squeaked with every step, and he carried a black dagger none of them had seen before. The association officer checked the ledger twice. "You killed the boss?" Ren nodded. Pell recovered enough to speak. He claimed the team had weakened the Rat King and that Ren had stolen whatever remained. His voice rose as he described a heroic retreat that had apparently required leaving the registered porter under the boss's claws. The officer turned the raid ledger around. Every exit time was recorded. So was the boss's death. Pell and the others had left 43 minutes before the kill. Ren expected the officer to ask for a statement. Instead, the woman looked at his torn side and called for a healer. A familiar pale lilac braid appeared between the medics. Lyra Morin was 24, slight, and always looked as though she had just stepped away from an argument she intended to finish later. Square glasses framed amber eyes. Ink stained 2 fingers of her left hand because she wrote dosage notes directly on her gloves when people ignored her. She saw Ren and stopped. "You look expensive," she said. It was the closest Lyra came to sounding worried. Ren tried to apologize for bleeding near the clean equipment. Lyra pressed 2 fingers against his mouth before he could finish, then pointed toward the medical van. Pell began demanding that the association inspect Ren's storage. The officer reminded him that soul-bound storage could not be searched without a criminal warrant. Pell argued that Ren was an F rank, and therefore could not legally own boss loot of that quality. Ren looked at the black dagger in his hand. "I chose it," he said. That was true, though not complete. Pell stared at the dagger, then at the sealed gate. He had already made his own choice by running. Lyra guided Ren into the van and shut the door in Pell's face. Inside, she cut away the ruined jacket, revealing a body made narrow by years of poor meals and overloaded packs. A pale strap scar circled his right wrist. Fresh bruises spread over his ribs, and the new potion had closed the largest wound unevenly. Lyra's expression tightened. She asked what he had taken. Ren told her about the healing potion. He did not mention the 17 other rewards until she finished stabilizing him and the association moved the van away from the crowd. Then he opened his storage panel, where only she could see it. Lyra adjusted her glasses. The amber in her eyes reflected row after row of icons. She remained silent long enough that Ren wondered whether the healing had exhausted her. Finally, she pointed at the endurance elixir. "You have not drunk that yet?" Ren shook his head. "Good." She pointed at the 3 monster cores. "And those?" "Also, no. Better." Her fingers stopped over the stone throne. "Why?" "It was going to be destroyed." Lyra closed the panel with one sharp motion and told him to lie down before his sense of economy killed him. After the association confirmed his legal ownership of the chosen dagger and recorded the dungeon clear under his name, the abandonment ledger qualified Ren for an immediate emergency clear advance. The final payment would wait for the formal review, but the advance was enough for 10 days of Mina's stabilizers. Ren stopped at the night pharmacy before returning to the apartment he shared with her. The building leaned toward the elevated railway, as though listening for trains. Their unit had 2 rooms, a kitchenette, and a window that rattled whenever a truck passed below. Mina sat at the table beneath a blanket. She was 16, with a dark brown bob that curled around her jaw, and turquoise eyes faded by unstable mana. Thin blue veins showed near her collarbone when the illness flared. She had arranged 3 medicine bottles in a row and was pretending not to count the remaining pills. When Ren entered, her gaze moved from his bandages to the black dagger, and then to the crown tucked under his arm. She asked whether the gray wolves had finally paid him in royal furniture. Ren placed the crown on the table. Mina turned it over, tested its weight, and decided it would hold walnuts better than the chipped bowl. The stone throne appeared beside the table a moment later. It was carved for a creature 3 feet tall, with snarling rat heads on both armrests. Their old chair had collapsed the previous week. Ren lowered himself onto the throne. It released a long, miserable squeal. Mina stared at him. Ren adjusted his weight. The throne squealed again, louder. "Legendary craftsmanship," he said. Mina laughed until the blue veins at her throat brightened, and she had to press a hand to her chest. Ren was out of the throne before the sound ended. He knelt beside her, counted her breaths, and reached for the medicine. She waved him off after the flare passed. The smile remained, smaller now. Ren looked at the 3 bottles on the table. For 5 years, his life had been measured in doses. Every raid became rent, food, medicine, and the amount left before the next gate opened. The doctors had never lied to him. Stabilizers could slow the damage. Only a restoration crystal from an A-rank treasure chamber could rebuild mana channels already collapsing. Such crystals were rare, and their market was narrower than their power suggested. A crystal began losing potency within a day of extraction, and would bond only to a patient whose mana profile had been registered before the treasure chamber opened. Gate surveys could sometimes identify a restoration class signature, but exact compatibility remained uncertain until the item appeared. Teams without a matching patient chose weapons, permanent elixirs, or class stones that could be used or sold with certainty. Anything unclaimed vanished when the treasure chamber closed. A compatible restoration crystal could exist 10 feet from a registered sick child and still be destroyed, because every hunter with a choice valued a guaranteed reward more highly. Ren opened his storage and looked at 17 items that should no longer have existed. For the first time, the crystal did not feel impossible. That night, he made a list. He would learn what full collection required. He would strengthen his body without damaging it. He would sell only materials and duplicate gear. He would reach A-rank access. At the bottom, after several minutes, he added one more line. Trust no guild with Mina's life. Lyra arrived the next morning carrying a medical scanner, 2 nutrition packs, and the expression of a person who expected to discover a crime against anatomy. Ren had already cleaned the Rat King's dagger, repaired the least damaged piece of armor, and arranged the permanent items on the floor by color. Lyra took one look at the arrangement and asked whether he had sorted unknown magical substances according to how attractive they looked. Ren explained that the labels were incomplete. She told him that poison was often beautifully labeled. For the next 3 hours, she tested each item. The endurance elixir was safe once his wounds finished closing. The strength elixir required 3 days between doses. 2 cores were compatible with his channels. The third carried a beast-type impulse that might cause muscle spasms in an untrained F rank. The skill stone for Quick Step was compatible, but only barely. Lyra made him promise to learn it under supervision. Lyra looked toward Mina's medicine bottles, then wrote a number on her glove that was less than 1/10 of the standard fee. Ren started to object. She informed him that the remaining amount covered the inconvenience of hearing him apologize. He paid. The endurance elixir tasted like bitter roots boiled in iron water. Heat collected in his abdomen, spread along his spine, and settled into every muscle with a deep ache. Ren spent the next hour lying on the floor while Lyra monitored his pulse. By evening, he could climb the building's 6 flights of stairs without stopping on the 4th landing. 3 days later, he drank the strength elixir. His hands shook for 20 minutes. Afterward, the old iron skillet felt strangely light. He learned Quickstep in an association practice room. The skill did not teleport him. It compressed mana beneath the feet and released it in one sharp burst. Ren's first attempt moved him 12 feet and planted him shoulder first into a padded wall. His second attempt was shorter. His third ended upright. His 10th carried him past the stopping mark. The speed boots he had looted from the Rat King amplified the burst before his body understood how to brake. Ren crossed the practice room, the safety mat, and a decorative plaster divider built around the reception desk. He emerged into the lobby, wearing half the wall. A clerk lowered her coffee. Lyra walked through the hole, checked his pupils, and told him the boots worked. Ren paid for the divider from the money earned by selling ordinary rat materials. The medicine advance remained untouched in a separate envelope Mina had already hidden from him. Mina kept the invoice beside the crown because she said both were proof that power required furniture. Over the next month, Ren entered 6 low-rank gates. He did not choose them randomly. Association records showed which dungeons had bosses vulnerable to the skills he already possessed. He joined as a registered combat porter, carried supplies as before, and made certain his contribution mark recorded real damage or a documented rescue. The first gate was an underground mushroom colony. Ren used salt lamps to draw sporelings away from the rear guard, and killed the bloated cap with the Rat King's fang. 5 hunters chose rewards before him. Ren took a mana-resistant mask as his ordinary item. When the 60-second selection cycle ended, Full Collection transferred 9 remaining rewards into his storage. The second gate contained glass-backed lizards. Ren pulled a wounded archer out of a collapsing tunnel and severed the boss's tail after the main team pinned it. He chose a low-grade grip enhancement and collected 11 leftovers. The third gate proved that Full Collection did not care about market value. It took cracked shell fragments, a ceremonial spoon, and a banner so ugly that Mina refused to hang it in the apartment. It also took 2 useful cores and a ring that slowly restored minor injuries. The pattern became clear. The function activated only after Ren made his ordinary choice, and every other eligible participant completed theirs. Each eligible hunter received a private 60-second selection window at the same time. Contribution order mattered only when 2 people reached for the same item. A conscious hunter could choose or refuse, while an unconscious participant relied on a priority list registered before the raid, or lost the choice when the timer expired. Full Collection gathered whatever the dungeon intended to destroy. It never touched rewards already claimed by other hunters. Ren and Lyra compared the result with his old raid ledgers. Unique functions were known to remain dormant until a hunter completed a matching achievement. Every earlier boss fight had ended with stronger registered hunters still inside, or with Ren's contribution limited to carrying and rescue. The Rat King was the first boss he had personally killed as the sole eligible survivor after the rest of the team crossed the exit. That victory had met the hidden awakening condition. Full Collection no longer required him to fight alone, only to register, survive, contribute, and remain inside until the boss died. The unlimited Full Collection compartment accepted system rewards only. Ren's ordinary personal compartment could hold groceries or small tools within the same weight and volume limits every hunter received, but it could not hide a person or absorb large evidence crates. Items summoned from Full Collection appeared within arm's reach and carried no speed beyond what Ren gave them, so he could not drop a stone thrown from the sky. That limitation disappointed Mina, who had suggested dropping the throne on Gareth Thorne if the Grey Wolves bothered them. Ren corrected her. Mina said the throne did not care. The fourth gate introduced another rule. After Ren absorbed his 3rd F-rank endurance core, the system displayed a saturation notice. Low-grade cores had pushed his body as far as they could. More would remain valuable, but further growth required E-rank or stronger sources. It meant hunters could not become S-ranks by grinding sewer gates for 20 years, and it explained why the rich still fought over high-level access. It also meant he would have to climb honestly. Honesty, Ren had learned, was much easier when one owned 27 pieces of legal unreported treasure. He sold monster materials through 3 different licensed brokers. The permanent items stayed with him. Duplicate armor went to a quiet appraiser Lyra trusted, who asked no questions after seeing valid system ownership marks. The first large payment cleared 2 months of rent and purchased Mina's stabilizers. The second paid for proper meals, strength training, and a replacement pair of glasses. The third bought him a fitted black combat coat reinforced with grayscale panels. Ren kept the mismatched shoulder guards. They still worked. His next target was the Ash Wolf Gate, an E-rank dungeon scheduled to close beneath an abandoned rail terminal. Its boss dropped speed equipment. Full sets were almost never assembled because each piece counted as a separate reward. A hunter might take the boots and watch the coat, gloves, belt, and acceleration core disappear. Ren registered as the 7th member of a team led by a quiet, C-rank shield user named Oren. The gate survey described narrow platforms, ash vents, and packs that hunted by vibration. Ren studied the map until he could draw it from memory. Inside, black ash covered the rails like snow. Every footstep sent faint ripples through the ground. The team moved slowly, but one swordsman ignored the guide rope and jumped from a platform. 3 wolves erupted from beneath the ash. Ren saw their backs before anyone heard them. He used Quick Step to cross the distance, struck the nearest wolf behind the ear, and kicked the swordsman's ankle out of the second bite. Oren's shield slammed down between them. The team recovered. The swordsman complained that Ren had tripped him. Oren asked whether he preferred losing the leg. The complaint ended. At the boss chamber, the ash wolf emerged from a furnace pit. It stood higher than Ren's shoulder, its hide split by orange lines, each breath scattering sparks. The survey claimed it charged in straight lines. The first charge curved around Oren's shield. The wolf struck the rear mage and sent her across the platform. Ren understood the error. The creature was not tracking sight. It followed the strongest vibration, and Oren's planted shield created an obvious target until the mage stumbled harder. Ren shouted for everyone to stop moving. The ash wolf slowed, confused by the sudden stillness. Its burning head swung from side to side. Ren took the ugly ceremonial spoon from storage and threw it onto the far rail. The clatter rang through the chamber. The boss lunged after it. Oren repositioned. The healer reached the mage. Ren scattered metal shell fragments across 3 platforms and told the team to strike them in sequence. The wolf chased each vibration, building speed as it crossed the rails. On the 4th turn, Ren used Quick Step behind it and cut the tendon above its rear paw. The boss twisted with impossible speed. One burning claw tore through Ren's coat and flung him against a signal post. His ring closed the shallow cuts, but the impact drove air from his lungs. The ash wolf limped toward him. Fire gathered between its teeth. Oren stepped into the line and caught the blast on his shield. The metal glowed red. He could hold for seconds, not longer. Ren saw the cracked furnace pipes above the chamber. He also saw the boss favoring its injured leg and the ash shifting beneath its front paws. He used Quick Step, not toward the wolf, but up the angled support beside it. His new grip enhancement held him to the rusted beam. He climbed 2 strides, drove the Rat King's fang into a pressure valve, and twisted. A column of cold suppression foam exploded over the platform. The ash wolf's flames died beneath white chemical frost. Its muscles seized from the temperature change. Oren lowered the shield and rammed the creature sideways. The swordsman cut its front leg. Ren dropped from the beam, landed astride the boss's shoulders, and drove the dagger through the soft seam behind its skull. The wolf thrashed hard enough to throw him, but the blade stayed buried. Oren pinned the body until the orange lines faded. The treasure chamber opened behind the furnace. Oren took a shield core. The wounded mage chose a fire-resistant robe. The other selected a skill stone, a weapon, and 2 permanent elixirs. Ren's turn came last, because his contribution ranked 6th by raw damage, though the rescue and valve strike had been decisive. He chose the acceleration core. When the final timer ended, full collection gathered the speed coat, gloves, boots, belt, 3 potions, 2 materials, and a silver whistle that summoned a harmless ash fox for 10 minutes. Ren returned home with a complete E-rank speed set that no hunter in the city had assembled in a decade. Mina used the whistle immediately. The ash fox appeared on the kitchen counter, stole a walnut from the Rat King's crown, and vanished under the bed. Ren spent the next 10 minutes trying to catch an animal made of soot while wearing boots that still did not help him stop. By the end of the first month, Ren's body no longer looked borrowed from a taller man. Regular meals filled the hollows beneath his cheekbones. Training thickened his shoulders, and the silver streak above his left eye stood out more sharply, against hair that Mina had finally convinced him to cut. His official card still displayed F rank, but his measured strength had crossed into E. His endurance had reached the low edge of D, and the speed set could push him beyond what most D ranks could follow. He did not wear the full set in public. The city already noticed too much. Low-rank brokers spoke about an F rank who sold unusual quantities of clean boss material. Team leaders noticed that Ren always left treasure chambers with one ordinary reward and returned to the next raid carrying equipment nobody remembered him purchasing. He answered questions with invoices, legal ownership marks, and silence. The Grey Wolves answered with an accusation. Ren arrived at the Association Center for a scheduled reassessment and found Gareth Vale waiting beneath the bronze rank board. Gareth had captained Ren through most of his 5 years in the guild. He was broad through the chest, with cropped auburn hair, a square beard, and a wolf fang necklace he touched whenever he lied. The Grey Wolves' slate uniform fit him perfectly. Ren's old salary had probably paid for the silver thread around its cuffs. 2 association investigators stood beside him. A sealed evidence case rested on the desk. Gareth claimed that Ren had stolen 6 monster cores, 1 reinforcement stone, and a guild-owned dagger before leaving. He described Ren as desperate, resentful, and recently seen selling loot far beyond an F rank's means. Ren listened while the receptionist checked his appointment. When Gareth finished, Ren asked whether the accusation changed the reassessment time. The receptionist looked at him, then at Gareth, and said the test would proceed after a preliminary inventory review. Gareth's mouth tightened. He had expected fear, perhaps anger. During the old days, one hard look from a captain had been enough to make Ren apologize for injuries caused by somebody else's orders. Ren still felt the reflex. The word, sorry, reached the back of his tongue whenever an investigator opened a file. The evidence case contained 6 cores marked with Grey Wolf serial seals and a reinforcement stone recorded as missing from a C-rank raid 3 months earlier. Gareth said Ren had handled all of them as porter. The investigators requested Ren's voluntary system ledger. It showed every item he had personally claimed in the last 2 years. Soul-bound records could not be altered. None of Gareth's missing items had ever entered Ren's ownership. Gareth changed direction. He suggested that Ren had passed them to an illegal broker before registration. A woman with an indigo bob entered the room while he spoke. Examiner Mara Ven supervised combat reassessments and possessed the patient expression of someone who enjoyed letting dishonest people build taller explanations. She placed another ledger beside the case. The 6 cores had been scanned at a private warehouse owned by Gareth's cousin. The scan occurred 2 days before the supposed theft report. The reinforcement stone appeared in footage from Gareth's own training room, set into the pommel of his secondary sword. Gareth touched the wolf fang at his throat. Mara said the fraud investigation would continue separately. Ren could take his reassessment now, unless Gareth intended to accuse the testing arena of theft as well. Gareth stared at Ren. The old anger in his face was almost comforting. It was easier to understand than the friendliness he used before dangerous corridors. Whatever you found, Gareth said quietly. An F rank cannot keep it. Ren adjusted the strap around his right wrist. The scar beneath it had faded, but he still felt the weight of the old pack when Gareth spoke. Then, "It is fortunate I came to change the letter." Mara led him into the arena. The reassessment was designed to expose temporary equipment boosts. Ren had agreed to use registered C-grade practice weapons and no armor above E. Permanent physical changes remained valid, but borrowed relics and hidden set bonuses would not carry him. Lyra watched from the medical platform with Mina beside her. Mina wore a turquoise scarf over the faint blue veins at her throat. The medicine had steadied her, yet every trip outside still cost energy. She had refused to miss the test. Gareth remained behind the observation glass, under investigator supervision. The first stage measured strength, speed, endurance, mana, and control. Ren struck the reinforced plate. ran the obstacle lane, held a weighted shield, and maintained a mana thread through a moving ring. His numbers placed him solidly in D rank, with speed briefly touching C when he used Quickstep. Mara raised one eyebrow at the result. The second stage introduced moving constructs. 3 bronze hounds attacked from separate doors, while a training archer fired blunt arrows from an upper rail. Ren carried a short spear, a round shield, a practice bow, and a dull knife. A month earlier, handling all 4 would have been awkward. He had spent every morning drilling transitions until his fingers found grips before his eyes did. The first hound rushed low. Ren planted the spear butt, caught the construct beneath its jaw, and used its momentum to lift it into the path of an arrow. He released the spear rather than fight the weight, turned with the shield, and struck the second hound across the sensor plate behind its ear. The third reached his blind side. Ren dropped the shield, drew the knife, and used Quickstep across its path. The blade entered the gap at its shoulder. He twisted, climbed over the construct's back, and landed beside the bow stand. The archer fired again. Ren bent, took the bow, and sent one arrow into the archer's rotating base. The construct turned half a second too slowly. His second arrow broke the release joint. The damaged hounds reassembled for another pass. Ren retrieved the spear while moving, and swept the first hound's legs. He did not fight each weapon as a separate style. The bow created distance for the spear. The shield disrupted balance for the knife. Quickstep connected gaps that his body could not yet cross naturally. The advanced reassessment used a one-use micro-dungeon core recovered from a collapsed gate. 6 candidates occupied sealed, linked arenas, and every construct fed damage into the same boss ledger. The core would burn out after this single session, which made the test expensive and impossible to farm. Ren could not see the other candidates through the arena walls, but their support node battles were registered as part of the same encounter. The central construct entered Ren's arena through the far gate. It was a 6-armed stone golem, rated at low C. Each arm carried a different blunt weapon, and the head rotated independently from the torso. The reassessment rules required survival for 3 minutes, not victory. Ren watched the golem take 4 steps, its left knee dragged by a fraction. The arena staff had repaired the outer shell, but not the uneven core pressure beneath it. The first hammer came down. Ren moved inside the arc, caught a second strike on the shield, and felt the impact drive through his shoulder. He retreated before the remaining arms closed around him. The golem advanced. Its weapons overlapped to deny every direct approach. Ren fired 3 arrows. 2 broke against the chest. The third struck the dragging knee and produced a faint blue pulse. He used Quickstep toward the wall, ran 2 strides along the sloped padding, and pushed off above the golem's first swing. The practice spear went between 2 upper arms. Ren let go before they trapped it, landed on the rotating shoulder, and drove the knife into the blue seam behind the neck. The knife bent. The core was deeper than expected. One stone hand caught Ren around the waist. Pressure closed over his ribs. Mina stood sharply in the observation room. Lyra caught her arm before she reached the glass. Ren could not draw the knife. The shield lay 15 feet away. The bow was farther. He placed both boots against the golem's chest and activated Quickstep at point-blank range. The burst tore him from the stone grip. He hit the floor hard, rolled, and felt something in his side pull. The golem turned toward him, its damaged knee pulsing brighter now. Ren took the shield, waited for the dragging step, and slid the shield edge beneath the heel. The golem's weight shifted. He struck the knee with the spear butt at the exact moment the foot came down. The blue seam ruptured. One side of the construct collapsed. Its rotating torso continued attacking, carving dents into the arena, but the lost height forced 3 arms into the floor. Ren climbed over the fallen weapons, seized the bent knife, and drove it through the exposed core junction. The golem stopped, with 16 seconds remaining. Its head separated from the neck, rolled across the floor, and struck the evidence folder an assistant had carried into the arena. The label, F. Ren Hale, disappeared beneath a stone cheek. Mara looked at the ruined folder. "The equipment appears to disagree," she said. The system recalculated Ren's combat record. His stable physical performance qualified for D. His tactical score, construct kill, and verified dungeon clears pushed the final reassessment to C. The bronze C rank card felt lighter than his old F card, though both weighed the same. The exhausted micro-dungeon core generated one real reward chamber, then cracked into inert ash beneath the arena. Most reassessments did not use such a core, and the association could not repair or repeat this one. Ren ranked first in contribution and chose a plain gray skill stone marked Instant Equipment Shift. The 5 candidates in the linked arenas claimed their items through the shared chamber interface. When the timer ended, full collection quietly gathered the remaining 4 rewards. Mara saw the chamber empty at once. Her gaze moved to Ren. He waited for the alarm. She checked the system ledger, confirmed every claimed item carried a valid ownership signature, and closed the record. "Your storage is your business until it becomes public danger," she said. "Keep it from becoming public danger." Outside, investigators escorted Gareth toward a separate interview room. He stopped when he saw the new card. Ren did not give a speech. He did not tell Gareth that the backpack had learned to fight or that every discarded reward now belonged to him. He clipped the C rank card to his coat and walked past. Gareth's face in the glass door looked smaller than Ren remembered. That night, Ren tested Instant Equipment Shift in a rented training booth. Before the skill, storage could place a weapon into his hand, but armor had to be worn piece by piece. The new stone allowed him to register complete sets and exchange them in a single pulse of mana. Black speed coat, gray defensive vest, light leather scouting gear. The first transition tangled one sleeve around his face. The second put both boots on the wrong feet. By the 40th attempt, the change occurred between 2 steps. By the 200th, he could draw a spear in one hand while the shield set formed around the other arm. Mina watched from a chair near the wall and marked each failure on a notepad. She had drawn a small throne beside the number 48. Ren asked what it meant. She said it marked the point where he tried to change into a speed set while sitting down and kicked the chair through the door. The door had not. 2 weeks later, the Grey Wolves audit revoked Garrett's captain license, ordered the guild to pay Ren the 2 missing raid wages, and referred the warehouse fraud for prosecution. Gareth disappeared from the active roster. Ren used the back pay for Mina's next medical scan and did not attend the hearing. C rank access changed Ren's options and his expenses. Higher gates paid better, but registration required insurance, equipment inspection, healer coverage, and a recognized formation. Independent hunters could join public teams, though those teams often placed unknown members wherever risk was cheapest. Ren had spent 5 years in that position. He decided to build his own 4-person unit for the Arcane Factory Gate. The factory had appeared beneath a closed appliance district. Survey drones recorded conveyor belts, smelting chambers, and metal golems whose armor shifted according to incoming damage. 3 teams had refused the contract after reading the repair estimate for broken weapons. Ren asked Lyra first. She was still E rank on paper. Her hewing control was excellent, but her mana pool remained too small for long battles. Guilds used her in clinics and left her out of serious raids. Because they preferred healers who could flood an entire room with light, even when half that energy was wasted. Ren showed her a white wood staff from the Mushroom Dungeon. Its core reduced spell cost and recycled excess healing mana. Lyra inspected the ownership mark, the grain, and the mana circuit. Then she asked what he wanted in return. "Medical judgment," Ren said. "Including when I do not like it." She looked at him over her square glasses. "That is the most expensive service I provide." She accepted. Brandthorn was harder to find. He had once been a C-rank tank, known for holding a bridge against a basilisk pack. A tendon rupture in his right arm ended his contract with the Iron Banner Guild. Treatment restored movement, but not the ability to carry a heavy shield for more than a minute. He now worked at a freight yard, directing enchanted loaders with his left hand. Brand stood almost a head taller than Ren, and twice as wide. His skin was dark, his head shaved, and a copper beard framed a mouth that rarely wasted words. A black support brace covered his injured right forearm. An old blue runic tattoo circled the left. Ren offered him an E-rank light guard shield from the Ash Wolf chamber. The shield distributed impact across a full-body mana frame instead of forcing the arm to absorb it. Bran lifted it once. The black brace remained steady. He struck the shield against a loading post. A pale barrier spread around his shoulders and hips. Bran asked why Ren would lend expensive gear to someone who had not entered a dungeon in 2 years. Ren said he was not lending it. The shield would become Bran's after one successful raid and final medical clearance, provided he never abandoned a teammate to protect loot. Bran studied Ren's narrow face, the silver streak, and the mismatched shoulder guards still strapped over an otherwise fitted coat. Specific rule, he said. Specific experience. Bran accepted. Nyx Lowe found Ren before Ren found him. The F-rank scout emerged from beneath a cafe table, where he had been listening to 2 brokers discuss the arcane factory. He was short and wiry, with white hair over a black underlayer, yellow-green eyes, and a red scarf wrapped twice around his neck. He looked young until he started listing every gate accident in the district from memory. Nyx had applied to 11 teams. All rejected him because his danger sense triggered too often. He was known for stopping at empty corridors, refusing apparently safe doors, and predicting collapses that did not always happen. Ren asked how often he was wrong. Nyx said roughly 1 time in 5. Ren asked how often teams regretted ignoring him. Nyx looked toward the ceiling and counted on his fingers. That answer was enough. Ren gave him reinforced boots and a smoke gray cloak that blurred movement at the edge of vision. Nyx accepted them, then warned that the cafe's hanging lamp was about to fall. The owner rolled his eyes. The lamp dropped onto the empty chair Ren had just left. Their first training session lasted 6 hours. Ren tried to assign every movement. He told Bran where to stand, corrected Lyra's target order, redirected Nyx's route, and changed his own weapon every few seconds to cover whatever gap he imagined. Bran finally lowered the shield and said Ren was fighting 3 teammates as well as the practice constructs. Ren looked at the stopped formation. He had chosen competent people, given them tools, and then treated them like equipment he needed to hold personally. The habit was older than full collection. In the Grey Wolves, any task Ren did not check became a task used against him. He apologized. Lyra told him to save the apology and change the plan. They established simple authority. Bran controlled defense and positioning. Lyra controlled medical decisions and consumable use. Nyx controlled route safety. Ren controlled the main target and could override only when he saw information the others lacked. The arcane factory gate opened at dawn beneath a sky washed silver by rain. Inside, the air smelled of hot iron and old oil. Conveyor belts crossed a cavernous hall between machines built for hands much larger than human ones. Blue sparks moved through pipes overhead. Every few minutes, a bell rang somewhere in the dark, and another line of metal workers awakened. Nyx stopped at the first intersection. The left path appeared clear. The right contained 3 dormant golems visible behind a mesh wall. Nyx chose the right. Bran asked why. Nyx pointed at the clean oil on the left floor. Something large had been dragged through it recently. Ren followed his decision. The right path led past the dormant golems without waking them. 10 minutes later, a crusher dropped across the left corridor behind them. The impact shook dust from the pipes. Nyx flinched before anyone else, then pretended to adjust his scarf. The first battle began in a room of hanging chains. 6 worker golems attacked with hammer arms. Their chest plates hardened against the first type of damage received. Silver plates flowed over its torso, sealing against piercing attacks. He shifted to the shield and hit the same target from the side. The plates softened to absorb impact, exposing a narrow seam beneath the arm. Bran saw it and called the rhythm. Ren pierced after Bran's strike. The golem fell. The others adapted faster. Lyra used a thin healing thread rather than broad spells, spending only enough mana to close cuts and restore grip strength. Nyx moved behind the machines, tagging pressure valves with chalk. Bran held 2 golems at once, while Ren cycled spear, blade, and shield. The team advanced floor by floor. At the central foundry, they discovered why the gate rating had risen. Every destroyed golem was being carried inward by the conveyor belts. Metal bodies fell into a circular furnace. Arms, plates, and cores fused inside a column of white heat. The factory bell rang once, deep enough to vibrate through Ren's teeth. A boss pulled itself from the furnace. The alloy foreman had 4 legs, 6 arms, and a torso made from every machine the team had destroyed. Plates rotated across its body in bands. One moment, the surface was smooth silver. The next, layered black iron, then porous red ceramic that drank heat from the room. Nyx saw 4 energy lines leading from the boss into separate walls. Ren saw them too. He told Nyx to locate the nodes, told Bran to hold the central lane, told Lyra to stay behind the second press, and charged before any of them answered. The foreman's first arm became a blade. Ren shifted into the speed set and crossed beneath it. His spear struck the chest. Silver armor flowed over the point. He switched to a hammer and hit the same place. The surface turned black and absorbed the impact. He changed to twin knives, circled, and cut the rear joint. The boss rotated without moving its legs. A chain arm caught Ren across the back and threw him through a stack of molds. Bran intercepted the next strike. His light guard shield spread force through the monoframe, but the floor cracked beneath his boots. Nyx shouted that the western node was moving. Ren ordered him to mark all 4 before touching them. The foreman changed again. Ceramic armor covered its chest and vented a wave of furnace heat. Lyra's barrier flickered. Ren shifted into a fire-resistant coat, crossed the heat, and attacked the left knee. A piston drove from the floor beneath him. Nyx's warning arrived a fraction too late. The piston clipped Ren's thigh and spun him into the boss's reach. 2 metal hands closed around his arms. Bran charged. The foreman's hammer arm struck the shield and forced him back 6 steps. Lyra poured healing mana into Ren's shoulder as the metal grip tightened. Her small reserve dropped visibly on the team panel. Ren summoned a dagger into each hand and cut at the fingers. The boss changed its alloy. The blades scraped harmlessly. He had an answer for every armor. He did not have time to use all of them while holding Bran's position, tracking Lyra's mana, and searching for 4 hidden nodes. The thought reached him with the clarity of pain. He was doing it again. Ren stopped issuing instructions. Bran, defense is yours. Lyra, use whatever you need. Nyx, break the nodes in your order. He angled the shield and caught the foreman's next hammer along the curved edge. Instead of resisting, he redirected it into the metal hands holding Ren. One grip broke. Lyra changed her spell. A narrow pulse entered Ren's trapped shoulder and overcharged the muscle for 3 seconds. He tore the other arm free. Nyx vanished beneath the conveyor line. Bran ordered Ren left. Ren obeyed. The shield drove the boss's attention right. Ren shifted to the speed set, crossed behind it, then changed into the heavy piercing set during the step. The registered equipment formed cleanly around him. He drove a long black lance into the exposed rear seam. The foreman hardened against piercing damage. Bran struck the opposite leg with the shield, forcing the armor to change toward impact resistance. Ren shifted to twin blades and opened the seam before the rotation finished. A blue line in the western wall went dark. Nyx had found the first node. The boss lost 1 arm. It compensated by merging 2 remaining arms into a broad furnace cannon. Heat gathered at its center. Bran called for cover. Lyra moved before Ren did, placing a layered barrier around Bran's shield. The cannon fired. White flame filled the lane. Bran's boots carved trenches across the floor. The light guard frame spread impact through his body, and Lyra's efficient barrier repaired itself in thin overlapping sheets instead of wasting mana on one solid wall. Ren ran along the protected side of the blast. His coat changed to fire resistance, then to speed, then to armor breaking. Each shift consumed mana, but months of practice kept the transitions from breaking stride. The second node failed. The cannon sputtered. The foreman tore a conveyor section from the floor and swung it toward Nix's last position. Bran shouted that Nix had moved and ordered Ren to stay on the core. Ren trusted him. He attacked the chest while the conveyor smashed empty ground. Hammer to force black iron. Lance to force silver. Fire vial to force ceramic. Then the armor-breaking blade entered before the next layer sealed. The third node went dark. The boss's legs locked. The fourth line brightened as every remaining reserve flowed into it. Nix appeared on a pipe 30 feet above the foundry. He had reached the last node, but a rotating saw guarded the access panel. His cloak was torn, and blood ran from one sleeve. Ren could not reach him before the saw completed another turn. Lyra could not heal through the furnace interference. Bran was still holding the boss. Nix looked down at Ren, then at the saw. Fear tightened his face. His hands shook against the pipe. He moved anyway. The smoke-gray cloak blurred at the edge. Nix stepped onto the rotating housing, let the saw pass beneath his heel, and drove a stolen maintenance spike into the node. Blue light vanished from the factory. The alloy foreman's armor stopped changing. Ren selected the black lance and shifted into the full penetration set. Bran lowered the shield at the exact angle they had drilled. Ren stepped onto its face. Bran launched him. Quick step ignited beneath Ren's boots. He crossed the foundry, above the boss's frozen arms, turned in the air, and drove the lance through the broken chest seam into the central core. The foreman staggered. Its furnace body tried to close around the weapon. Ren shifted out of the heavy set, landed light, summoned the Rat King's Fang, and cut the final energy line inside the wound. The factory bell rang once. Then every conveyor stopped. The treasure chamber opened inside the cooled furnace. 28 rewards floated above black metal pedestals. Bran's contribution placed him second. He chose a reinforced Guardian core. Lyra selected a mana economy bracelet. Nix took windstep boots after checking twice that nobody else needed them. Ren chose the armor break skill stone. When the cycle ended, 24 remaining rewards entered his storage. Among them were complete defensive plates, healer robes, scout tools, permanent elixirs, weapons, crafting plans, and a small enchanted cargo cart marked Follow Owner. Ren gave Bran the full light guard set, Lyra the white and green healer coat, and Nix the smoke cloak's matching gloves. The rewards transferred legally through the association registry. None of them spoke for a moment. They had spent their careers watching suitable equipment disappear because somebody richer chose something else. Bran placed one hand on the new shield. Lyra checked the bracelet, then checked Ren's pulse, because gratitude made her uncomfortable. Nix asked whether the windstep boots could outrun falling lamps. Ren told him they could test that outside. The enchanted cart followed Ren home. It fit through the apartment building's front door. It did not fit through the stairwell turn on the third floor. For 40 minutes, it struck the same corner, backed up, and tried again, with solemn mechanical determination. Mina came downstairs in her blanket and watched it ram the wall. "It has your personality," she said. Ren looked at the fresh dent. "It owns fewer repair bills." The arcane factory clear changed 4 careers at once. Bran returned to active C-rank service after passing a shield endurance test with his new light guard set. Lyra's mana efficiency tripled, allowing her to heal a full team through a 40-minute engagement without collapsing. Nix rose to E rank after the factory records proved that his route decisions had prevented 2 lethal traps. Ren's combat estimate reached the edge of B, though his official card remained C until he completed the required number of supervised clears. More important, they wanted to raid together again. Ren rented a former karaoke lounge beneath a noodle restaurant and registered a guild. The owner had removed the couches but left 6 private rooms, mirrored walls, a stage, and an automated celebration system connected to voice recognition. The rent was low because the basement smelled faintly of soup stock and because the soundproofing trapped heat in summer. Mina painted the guild name on a piece of factory metal, Arsenal. The letters were white with a turquoise line beneath them. She claimed the line represented mana flow. Nyx thought it resembled a smiling snake. Bran mounted the sign anyway. Their first meeting took place beneath a dusty disco ball. Ren stood at the front with the old Grey Wolf's backpack on the floor beside him. He had invited 7 low-rank hunters whose records showed useful judgment and poor guild histories. 2 had been injured and dismissed. 3 had been used as porters despite combat licenses. 1 was an alchemist whose previous guild sold her potions under another name. The last was a quiet barrier caster who had abandoned a raid to carry 2 unconscious teammates out and was punished for losing boss contribution. Ren explained Arsenal's rule. Nobody would be sent first into danger because they were weak, cheap, or replaceable. Equipment would be assigned by compatibility and responsibility, not rank alone. Rare gear was not charity. Anyone who received it would train, follow formation, maintain the item, and prove they would not abandon the people beside them. The voice system detected one word in his explanation. A trumpet fanfare blasted from the ceiling. Blue and pink lights moved over Bran's expressionless face. Nyx looked delighted. Lyra looked toward the control panel as though planning surgery. Ren waited for the music to stop, then continued. He reached the word boss again 12 minutes later. By the end of the meeting, everyone had learned to call dungeon leaders large targets. Arsenal's first months were busy rather than glamorous. Ren used common loot and duplicate equipment to establish a training pool. Lyra created compatibility charts. Bran designed formations that treated retreat as a planned movement instead of shame. Nyx inspected every new recruit's route discipline by hiding harmless warning signs around the basement. Mina managed inventory records from home when her health allowed it. She never touched Ren's soul storage, but she knew every physical item he transferred to the guild warehouse, which at first consisted of karaoke room 4 and a reinforced lock. Ren kept the best permanent enhancements for himself. This was not selfishness disguised as leadership. His function required him to survive every boss. If he died, the stream of equipment ended for everyone. He trained until the difference between owning weapons and understanding them began to narrow. The Tower of 100 Weapons appeared in the Industrial Harbor during Arsenal's 5th month. It was a B-rank gate with 25 accessible floors. Each floor favored a different form of combat, while the final Guardian changed weapon every time its health crossed a threshold. Large guilds disliked the gate because the reward chamber often produced incomplete sets and specialized skill stones with low resale value. Ren saw exactly what he needed. Arsenal entered with 8 hunters. Ren, Bran, Lyra, and Nyx formed the core. 4 recruits managed barriers, range support, and transport. The first floor tested spears in a field of stone reeds. Long-limbed mannequins attacked from beyond sword range. Ren used footwork Bran had drilled into him, kept the spear point moving in small circles, and broke the mannequins' wrists before driving through their chest seals. The third floor tested shields on a bridge beneath falling iron blocks. Bran commanded the crossing. Ren learned to receive force through his legs instead of locking his shoulders. When a block struck his shield off-center, he rolled the impact into the railing and preserved the formation behind him. The 6th floor belonged to bows. Wind changed direction every 3 seconds, and bronze birds carried target plates between towers. Nyx read the dust. Ren timed his draw to the shifts and learned that a missed arrow could still guide another hunter's shot by revealing the current. The 9th floor tested twin blades against thread-thin enemies that attacked in groups. Ren's first instinct was to chase the nearest opening. He crossed his own arms and nearly lost a finger. He slowed, allowed the left blade to defend, and used the right only when his hips had already created the angle. Every floor gave experience that no permanent elixir could replace. At the 15th floor, the tower separated the team into 4 corridors. Ren could see Bran through a glass wall, but could not reach him. Lyra's path filled with poison mist. Nyx faced a room of false doors. The support group had to defend a rotating platform from animated weapons. Ren's corridor contained no enemies. It contained 4 control levers. Each lever relieved one team and worsened another. The old Ren would have tried to calculate every movement alone. He would have pulled levers faster than the others could adapt, and blamed himself for every injury. Instead, he opened the communication channel and described the mechanism. Bran asked for more weight on his path because his set could absorb it. Lyra requested 3 seconds of clear air, then told Ren to send the poison toward her again after she established a recycling field. Mix admitted he could not identify the true door and asked the support barrier caster to create a vibration pulse through the shared floor. Ren followed their calls. The team cleared the floor with enough time to argue about who had stepped on the false door that released a flock of wooden chickens. Nyx blamed the architecture. The final Guardian waited on the 25th floor in a circular hall lined with weapon racks. The 100-hand master wore smooth porcelain armor and carried a spear. Ren stepped forward alone, while Arsenal held the surrounding seal points. The master opened with a thrust that split into 7 afterimages. Ren blocked the true point with the rim of his shield, shifted to a spear set, and answered along the same line. The Guardian turned, drew a sword from the wall, and cut through Ren's shaft. Instant equipment shift replaced the broken spear with twin blades before the fragments hit the floor. The master changed to a hammer. Ren changed to a shield. The first impact drove him back. The second cracked the outer barrier. The Guardian's porcelain face reflected the rotating weapons around them, offering no expression to read. Ren stopped matching weapon to weapon. He used the bow against the hammer, firing into the master's leading knee from outside its arc. When the Guardian chose a shield, Ren did not take a hammer. He used quick step to close the distance, placed a short spear behind the shield edge, and levered it aside. Against twin blades, he used a long staff to control range. Against a chain, he summoned the old bent spear from his first days and let the chain wrap around it, then released the weapon and pulled the Guardian off balance. The battle moved through the hall. Racks shattered. Blades spun across the floor. Ren shifted sets inside combinations, learning to make each transition part of the attack rather than a pause between them. Every rack opened. 100 weapons rose into the air and aimed toward Ren. The support team shouted warnings from the seal points. Ren saw no safe path. The airborne blades covered the floor, the walls, and every line above his head. Then he noticed the Guardian's hands. They were empty. The master controlled the weapons through the tower seal behind its chest. It could not maintain a physical weapon at the same time. Ren shifted into the speed set and ran toward it. The first wave fell. He used quick step between 2 sword lines, changed into the defensive set to catch 3 axes, then shed the weight before the next step. A spear grazed his cheek. A chain wrapped his ankle. Ren summoned the Rat King's Fang, cut free, and rolled beneath a descending hammer. 20 feet remained. The master moved backward, directing every weapon inward. Ren changed to the legendary black cloak found on the 20th floor. The fabric opened into rigid mana wings for a single burst. He rose above the crossing blades, folded the wings, and dropped behind the Guardian. Armor break entered the porcelain seam beneath its shoulder. The seal cracked. The 100 weapons lost control and plunged into the floor around them. The master turned with one empty hand raised. Ren placed the old bent spear through the broken seal and pushed until the core stopped. The treasure chamber contained 41 rewards. Arsenal's members chose equipment suited to their roles. Ren took a weapon mastery stone as his ordinary selection. Full collection gathered the blueprints, B-rank sets, training crystals, materials, and the legendary wing cloak that had appeared in the final chamber as a stronger version of the temporary trial item. The rewards allowed Arsenal to move beyond the basement within a month. Ren purchased an abandoned municipal archive building with thick walls, a loading yard, and enough interior space for training rooms. The karaoke basement remained their first office because the lease was paid through winter and because Nyx refused to abandon the fanfare system. Money changed around him. Numbers that once meant a month of medicine now described one reinforced door. A B-ranked core could buy an apartment. A legendary set could finance a small guild for years. Ren still collected free sauce packets from the noodle restaurant above the old office. Mina found 37 in his coat and made him sort them by expiration date. The mirror vault gate opened beneath a museum in the 6th month. Its early enemies copied the weapon and active skill of whichever hunter dealt the most damage during a 30-second cycle. The rule seemed manageable. Bran could strike first with a shield, allowing the mirror creatures to copy defensive tools while Ren destroyed them with something else. The boss was different. The Hall of Reflections contained a black glass knight surrounded by 12 mirror pillars. Every 30 seconds, the knight rewrote itself, according to the highest damage dealer in that interval. The copied version remained until the next rewrite. Nyx identified the cycle from the flicker moving around the pillars. Ren understood the danger and still underestimated it. He opened with the speed set and twin blades, intending to break 2 pillars before the first cycle ended. The Glass Knight copied Quick Step, his blade angles, and the speed coat's acceleration. At 30 seconds, it became a polished version of Ren. The knight crossed the hall before Bran could turn. Twin glass blades struck the light guard shield from opposite sides, one real and one delayed by a reflected image. Bran blocked the first. The second opened his shoulder. Ren shifted to a heavy hammer and hit the knight hard enough to crack its chest. The next cycle copied the hammer, armor break, and Ren's defensive set. The knight's new weapon shattered the outer layer of Bran's shield. Ren changed again. Bow, wingcloak, fireblade. Every answer became the boss's next answer. The mirror pillars stored the last 4 copies, creating afterimages that repeated old attacks. Soon the hall contained a speed phantom, a shield breaker, an airborne archer, and the central knight wearing Ren's current armor. Lyra spent mana faster than the bracelet could recycle it. Bran's injured arm trembled inside the brace. Nyx tried to reach the pillars, but reflected arrows cut off each route. Ren struck harder because the team was under pressure. The boss grew more dangerous because Ren struck harder. A glass spear passed through his side after an afterimage hid the true thrust. His ring closed part of the wound. Lyra's healing thread caught the rest, but the interruption cost her position. The knight used Quick Step and drove her against a pillar. Bran covered her with the broken shield. Nyx crawled beneath a line of reflected blades and shouted over the ringing glass. He had counted the pillar pulses. Each 30-second cycle contained an 18-second charging period, followed by a 12-second sampling window. Only damage dealt during those final 12 seconds selected the next copy. The mirror pillars were extensions of the same boss core, so damage to them entered the sampling register as well. The stored afterimages updated when a new pattern replaced the oldest one. Ren looked at the timer reflected in the floor. The light changed from blue to red as the 12-second sampling window opened. His name still dominated the total battle record, but the smaller sampling register had reset to 0. He stopped attacking. The Glass Knight did not weaken. It still held the copied spear and every skill from the current pattern. Ren had 12 seconds to survive what he had created. He shifted into plain training armor with no active set bonus and drew his old squeaking boots from storage. He had kept them after Mina threatened to throw them away. The knight lunged toward the sound of his right step. The left boot squeaked half a beat later. The echo bounced between mirrors and created a false rhythm. Ren changed direction before the boss completed its copied quickstep. The glass spear missed by inches. Bran held the next strike. Lyra moved behind his barrier and repaired the deepest crack. Nyx threw a chalkstone at the first pillar. The cycle ended. Bran had dealt the most damage during the final 12 seconds by striking the knight's arm with his shield. The boss rewrote itself into a defensive copy. Its speed vanished. The spear became a shield. The stored pattern still included dangerous afterimages, but the central threat slowed. Ren told the team the new plan. For one full cycle, Lyra would deal controlled damage with concentrated light needles. The knight would copy a healer's weak attack pattern and mana bracelet. During that window, Nyx would break 2 pillars. Bran would protect him. Ren would contribute nothing until the final seconds. Lyra adjusted her glasses with a bloodied finger and asked whether Ren was ordering her to attack a boss with medical light. He said he trusted her control. She answered that this was an irresponsible use of correct information. Her light needles struck the knight's joints with tiny, precise burns. Bran kept his own damage lower, using the shield to redirect instead of strike. Nyx moved along the outer wall. Ren ran interference in plain gear, drawing the copied shield away through footwork alone. The knight rewrote into Lyra's pattern. Its glass armor became thin healer robes. The shield transformed into a white staff. A false healing field spread through the hall and attempted to repair the mirror pillars. Nyx broke the first pillar before the field stabilized. Bran smashed the second with the rim of his shield. The stored speed phantom vanished. During the next cycle, Nyx dealt the most damage with small explosive tags on 2 more pillars. The knight copied his smoke cloak, danger sense, and windstep boots. It became difficult to see, but physically fragile. Ren still did not attack. The boss moved whenever Nyx sensed danger, reacting too early to threats that never arrived. Nyx exploited his own nervous habits, scattering harmless stones and false tags until the copied scout dodged into Bran's shield line. 2 more pillars fell. Only 6 remained. The knight's core began forcing shorter cycles. 30 seconds became 20. 20 became 15. The team rotated patterns. Bran for defense. Lyra for weak healing attacks. Nyx for evasive movement. The mirror storage lost Ren's strongest afterimages one by one. At the final 2 pillars, the boss abandoned copying and pulled every shard into a giant black body. Its sword stretched across half the hall. Reflections of Ren appeared along the blade, each wearing a different set. Nyx found the last rule. The core exposed itself only in the final 3 seconds before a rewrite. Bran locked the sword against his shield. Lyra tied healing threads around his legs to keep the impact from tearing muscle. Nyx climbed the cracked mirror frame and marked the core's expected position. Ren waited. 5 seconds. The Black Knight pushed Bran to 1 knee. 4. Lyra's mana reserve reached red. 3. A pale point appeared beneath the knight's sternum. Ren activated instant equipment shift. Speed boots carried the first step. The wing cloak lifted him over the sword. The penetration set formed in the air. Armor break wrapped around the long lance. He struck once. The lance passed through the exposed core, the knight, and the final mirror pillar behind it. Black glass collapsed across the hall like rain. The treasure chamber offered accelerated perception, false trail, reflection armor, illusion resistance, and 30 other rewards. Ren chose accelerated perception. His team claimed their own compatible items. Full collection took the rest. Outside, Nyx wrote acoustic artifact on a tag and tied it to Ren's old boots. Ren left the tag in place. The mirror vault taught him something no weapon manual had managed. An arsenal was not the number of answers a person possessed. It was knowing when an answer would make the problem worse. The red gate opened above Cairo Stadium during the 7th month. It appeared in the middle of a renovation shift, sealing 300 workers, 22 hunters, and a maintenance crew inside before emergency barriers could form. For the first 5 minutes, registered rescue teams could still cross inward, but red gates did not allow anyone to exit until the boss died. Their internal environments expanded far beyond the original location, and their collapse timers were notoriously short. The Crown Fangs arrived first. They were the strongest guild in the country, led by Cassian Rake, an SS-rank spearmaster, whose contracts covered half the privately managed high-level gates in the capital. Cassian did not enter personally. A 9-hunter response team under his A-rank field commander entered after assessing the Red Gate and announced an elite extraction plan. The trapped hunters would be supported first. Workers were to remain in fortified sections until the boss died. The stadium structure was already failing. Waiting meant burying hundreds of ordinary people under a dungeon sky. Arsenal entered under emergency authority with 12 members. Ren had completed his supervised clears and received his official A-rank card 3 days earlier, together with association approval for Red Gate response. Bran commanded defense. Lyra led 3 healers. Nyx managed routes with 2 scouts. The newer members carried pre-assigned equipment from Arsenal's physical warehouse. The gate transformed the stadium into a volcanic arena surrounded by broken terraces. Lava moved beneath the field. Stone lions hunted through service tunnels, driving workers toward the open ground where the boss could see them. The Crown Fang commander formed an attack group around the elite hunters near the northern stands. He demanded that Arsenal reinforce the boss lane. Ren looked toward the western tunnels, where Nyx's route panel showed 200 civilian signatures converging on a collapse zone. He chose the workers. Arsenal split into 3 units. Bran took barriers to the western stands. Lyra moved through the service corridors with the evacuation group. Nyx searched for the gate's emergency mechanism. Ren drew the stone lions away from all 3. He wore fire-resistant armor over the speed set's inner layer. The first lion leaped from a terrace, its mane burning white. Ren used the wing cloak to change height, passed above its claws, and cut the spine seam with armor break. The creature landed alive, turned, and exhaled a sheet of flame toward the workers. Ren shifted into reflection armor. The flames split across his chest and curved into the empty stands. A second lion attacked from below. He dropped the heavy shield into his hand, caught its jaw, and used quick steps sideways rather than backward. The lion's weight carried it into a cracked support column. The western terrace began to fall. Bran stood beneath the first slab, with his shield raised. Arsenal's barrier casters layered their walls across his light guard frame. The falling concrete stopped 10 feet above the workers, trembling under thousands of tons. Bran ordered the evacuation forward. His copper beard was dark with sweat. The injured arm inside his brace shook, but the full defensive set distributed the load through his back and legs. Lyra moved along the line, using efficient threads to keep crushed lungs open and burned skin stable. She did not spend mana restoring injuries that could wait. She kept people alive and moving. Nyx found a sealed control room beneath the eastern scoreboard. The door required a dungeon key that had not yet dropped. He marked it and continued searching. At the center of the field, the Fire Lion descended. It was larger than the stadium's original scoreboard, with a mane that spread across the air like a burning banner. Each paw step hardened lava into black glass. The Crown Fang attack group engaged from the north, launching ice spells and heavy artillery into its shoulder. The boss ignored them. It turned toward the vibration of hundreds of workers crossing the western tunnel. Ren struck its face with a long-range arrow, empowered by the tower's shooting skill. The arrow broke against its cheek, but the impact drew one molten eye toward him. He fired again. The Fire Lion charged. Ren ran across the field, while waves of heat peeled paint from the remaining seats. He did not try to overpower it. He used the speed set to stay ahead, striking the ground with metal bolts so the boss followed his vibration away from the evacuation line. The Crown Fang commander shouted that Ren was ruining the firing angle. Ren led the boss directly beneath the northern artillery platform. The commander stopped shouting and ordered a retreat. The lions struck the platform. Hunters scattered. Ren shifted into the wing cloak, rose along the creature's mane, and drove a frost spear into the base of its ear. The spear melted, but the sudden temperature change cracked the fire armor. Cassian's commander saw the opening and attacked with a broad ice blade. The strike deepened the crack. Other hunters followed. For several minutes, the battle became a moving siege. The Fire Lion swept its tail through the terraces. Ren cut falling debris apart before it reached the worker tunnel. Crown Fang mages froze lava channels, only for the boss to reheat them. Arsenal's ranged unit targeted the paws to limit movement. The lion changed phase at half health. Its body dissolved into a storm of flame and reformed at the western stands. Bran still held the collapsed terrace. The boss raised one paw above him. Ren was too far away. He opened storage, selected the silver whistle from the Ash Wolf gate, and blew. The harmless Ash Fox appeared on the boss's nose. For one absurd second, the Fire Lion crossed its eyes toward the tiny creature. The Ash Fox stole a spark from its mane and jumped away. That second was enough. Ren used the wing cloak and air step, a movement skill earned in a recent gate, to cross the remaining distance. He shifted into the heavy shield set in front of Bran. The lion's paw came down. The impact drove Ren waist deep into broken concrete. Reflection armor spread part of the heat. The shield frame screamed. His left knee nearly folded. Bran moved beside him, placing his own shield under the same paw. Together they lifted. The workers passed beneath the last stable arch. Lyra followed, dragging a burned foreman by his harness. Once the final civilian cleared, Bran released the terrace slab and rolled away. Concrete buried the tunnel behind them. Nyx's voice came through the channel. He had found the emergency exit mechanism, but it required a key from the boss chamber and 3 mass barrier anchors. Items of that type usually appeared in the treasure chamber. The red gate would begin full collapse 10 minutes after the boss died. Ren looked at the fire lion. The problem after victory was already waiting. He returned to the field. The Crown Fang formation had damaged the boss heavily, but their ice reserves were exhausted. The lion's flame form ignored ordinary blades. Ren switched through every resistance and penetration tool he had, testing the pattern. The fire lion became solid only when it inhaled. Each breath pulled flame inward for less than 2 seconds before releasing a blast. Ren told the attack group to stop firing and prepare one combined strike. The commander resisted until the boss's next flame wave destroyed his remaining artillery. Bran placed the last intact heavy barrier at midfield. Lyra reinforced Ren's lungs and wrapped cooling threads around his mana channels. Nyx climbed the scoreboard ruins to watch the lion's throat. The boss inhaled. Nyx called the moment. Bran struck his shield, sending a vibration through the black glass field. The fire lion turned toward the sound and inhaled deeper. Ren ran straight at it. The heat resistance set held for 3 steps. On the 4th, the outer coat burned. Ren shifted to reflection armor and crossed through the forming breath. Flames split around him. The wing cloak opened, carrying him up the lion's chest. The boss' body hardened. Ren drove the frost lance into the earlier crack beneath its ear. Armor break widened the gap. He released the lance, shifted to twin blades, and cut the exposed fire channels on both sides of the neck. The Crown Fang hunters attacked from below. Ice, force, and steel struck the same wound. The fire lion tried to exhale. Ren summoned the factory's cooling core and jammed it into the broken channel. The core burst. Cold traveled through the boss's condensed body. Cracks spread from its neck to every paw. Bran's shield hit the front leg. The entire creature broke into red crystal. The stadium became silent, except for falling ash. Then the treasure chamber rose from the center field. The contribution ledger showed 43 eligible hunters. The 22 licensed hunters trapped in the stadium had earned marks through defense, rescue, or the final attack. 9 Crown Fangs and all 12 Arsenal members had also contributed. 143 rewards floated in concentric circles. The selection order appeared according to contribution. Ren ranked first. He could see the emergency key near the outer ring. 3 mass barrier anchors floated beside it. A legendary fire heart, a lion blade, permanent elixirs, and dozens of valuable combat items occupied the inner circles. Ren chose the emergency key as his ordinary reward. The Crown Fang commander stared at him, as though he had thrown away a kingdom. 3 Arsenal barrier casters chose the mass barrier anchors. Lyra's assistants selected emergency medical tools, while the remaining hunters chose weapons, cores, armor, elixirs, or equipment assigned by need. The parallel 60-second windows closed. 100 rewards are scheduled for destruction. Unique function, full collection. Collect all remaining rewards? Ren pressed yes. The entire field filled with light. Items rose from their pedestals and streamed toward him in waves. The system repeated the acquisition notice for every reward. Stadium cameras designed to capture public raid records recorded the system count climbing across the official display. 1 item received. 2, 10, 50, 100. Hunters stopped moving. A Crown Fang mage lowered a potion halfway to his mouth. The commander watched mass healing crates, evacuation tools, and dozens of combat rewards vanish into Ren's storage. Ren did not wait for questions. The 3 arsenal barrier casters carried their claimed anchors into position. Ren handed the emergency key to Nyx and summoned the mass healing vials that nobody else had chosen. Bran organized placement across the western, northern, and underground exits. The red gate began collapsing. Fire opened in the sky. Sections of the volcanic stadium folded inward. The 3 anchors linked above the workers, creating a corridor of pale light. Nyx activated the emergency mechanism with 20 seconds remaining. A temporary exit split the air beneath the scoreboard. Workers crossed first. Injured hunters followed. Arsenal remained until the last barrier caster left. Ren exited beside Bran as the gate closed behind them. Rain covered the real stadium. Emergency lights turned every drop white. Hundreds of people stood beyond the barricades, and every phone screen showed the same recording of 100 rewards flying into Ren Hale's storage. Until that day, his problem had been hiding what he owned. By morning, the entire world knew. The stadium recording changed the market before Ren returned home. Common boss materials fell in price because investors expected Arsenal to increase supply. At the same time, secure warehouses, licensed appraisers, stabilizer crews, and rare compatibility-tested equipment became more expensive. Private gate companies suspended negotiations while lawyers reviewed ownership clauses written for 1 reward per hunter. 3 governments requested meetings. 12 guilds offered protection contracts. 7 offered marriage arrangements to people Ren had never met. Within 3 days, the association's emergency board issued Ren an official S-rank license. The decision rested on verified S-level physical measurements, his contribution to killing an A-rank Redgate boss, and the rescue record. Full collection was listed separately and did not count as combat power. Mina printed the strangest proposals and pinned them beside the Rat King's crown. Arsenal's new building filled with reporters, applicants, inspectors, and former allies who had suddenly remembered Ren's name. Mara then placed association guards at the entrance after 2 men tried to enter the warehouse disguised as fire safety officers. Mara also arranged the government meetings. Ren signed provisional emergency aid memoranda that required Arsenal to release suitable physical reserves during declared gate disasters. In return, the governments recognized his system ownership and Arsenal's independent command. Quarterly audits covered items transferred into physical warehouses, not the private contents of his soul-bound full collection compartment. No agreement gave a state or guild the right to seize his rewards. The first guild leader to arrive was Cassian Rake. He arrived without a convoy. At 34, Cassian looked younger than the statues already commissioned in his honor. Platinum hair was tied at the nape of his neck. His eyes were dark red, and his black uniform carried narrow gold lines that followed the shape of a spearhead from collar to waist. He moved with the controlled balance of a man who had trained one weapon until standing empty-handed, still looked armed. Cassian requested a private conversation in Arsenal's unfinished strategy room. He congratulated Ren on the stadium rescue and described full collection as a national resource. His proposal was generous by ordinary standards. Crown Fangs would provide access to privately controlled S-rank gates, elite protection, legal support, and a palace-sized headquarters. In exchange, Ren would join as a special executive. All rewards would be appraised by Crown Fangs, with a percentage assigned to him and the rest distributed according to strategic need. Ren asked, "Who defined strategic need?" Cassian said, "Experienced leadership." Ren asked whether the workers at Cairo Stadium would have received the mass barriers under that definition. Cassian's expression remained courteous. He explained that survival sometimes required prioritizing assets capable of protecting the greatest number later. Ren looked through the glass wall at Bran teaching 3 F-regs how to fall behind a shield instead of beneath it. Cassian did not threaten him. He placed a gold-edged contract on the table and said the offer would remain open until reality became less comfortable. Reality changed over the next 6 weeks. Crown Fangs could not revoke Ren's rank or forbid him from emergency gates. They did not need to. Cassian's companies owned exploration rights to most privately surveyed S-rank portals. His insurers refused to cover joint teams containing arsenal. Stabilizer crews became unavailable. Transportation contracts were cancelled. Merchants who depended on Crown Fang business delayed Arsenal's orders or raised prices beyond reason. Full collection was called theft from the dead, a threat to the item economy, and a power too dangerous for one person. No evidence supported the claim that Ren could take chosen rewards. So commentators began asking whether evidence would still matter after he became stronger than the government. Arsenal lost 3 recruits. 2 accepted Crown Fang contracts. 1 admitted he feared being blacklisted from every major gate. Ren let them leave with the equipment they had earned. He did not let the pressure stop the guild. Emergency gates remained public because nobody could legally own a disaster. Arsenal took the contracts other guilds refused. A mobile A-rank gate that opened inside freight trains. A thunder nest above the offshore turbines. The work was more dangerous and less predictable than licensed raids. It also produced rewards from bosses large guilds preferred not to fight. Ren's full arsenal crossed into SS-level output. His physical body, strengthened by A-rank elixirs and months of training, reached stable S-rank performance, even without legendary equipment. His first expensive car lasted 4 days. A stone gargoyle escaped from a collapsing emergency gate and landed on the roof while the car was parked outside Arsenal headquarters. Ren stood beside the flattened vehicle in the rain. Nix took a picture before anyone moved it. The image appeared on official shirts a week later, beneath the words, Rift Vacuum Cleaner. Ren learned about the merchandise when a deputy minister wore one under his suit jacket during a regulatory meeting. Cassian's next move came at the Ashen Cathedral, an uncontrolled A-rank gate that appeared near the Western Reservoir. Arsenal held emergency authority, but 5 Crown Fang elites arrived with a legal injunction questioning the stability of Ren's function inside a water supply zone. Their actual purpose was delay. The gate would rupture in 90 minutes. If Arsenal missed the entry window, Crown Fangs could take over under containment law. The 5 hunters blocked the access bridge. Each was chosen to counter a known part of Ren's style. A chain fighter controlled movement. A barrier specialist prevented equipment range changes. A fire mage punished close formations. A wind archer controlled the sky. Their leader, an S-rank duelist named Ivan, carried an anti-storage field that disrupted summoning within 20 feet. Cassian had studied the stadium recording carefully. Ren told Arsenal to continue stabilizer setup while he handled the bridge. Ivan offered one final chance to stand down. Ren asked whether the injunction authorized assault. It did not. The chain fighter attacked anyway, aiming to bind Ren until the entry window closed. Ren wore no visible legendary gear. The anti-storage field prevented him from changing sets once inside, so he selected a plain black combat suit, a short spear, and a light guard shield before stepping forward. The chain swept toward his ankles. Ren caught it on the shield rim and moved with the pull. The fighter expected resistance. Ren, instead, crossed the distance faster, struck the man's wrist with the spear shaft, and wrapped the loose chain around the bridge rail. The barrier specialist raised a transparent wall between them. Ren drove the shield into the first layer. It held. Fire spread across the stones behind him, cutting off retreat. Wind arrows descended from above. He could not summon reflection armor inside Ivan's field. Ren planted the spear, stepped onto the shaft, and used quick step upward. The first wind arrow passed beneath him. He caught the second on the shield and allowed its force to turn his body over the barrier wall. The fire mage redirected her flames into the landing point. Ren did not land. He kicked the top edge of the barrier and changed direction in the air, using the shield as a wing for one brief glide. He struck the archer's bow with the spear butt, broke the mana string, and dropped behind the fire mage. She released a point-blank blast. Ren placed the light guard shield against the ground. The barrier curved over him. Fire rolled across its surface and struck the chain fighter, who threw himself into the reservoir to escape the heat. Ren swept the mage's feet and tapped the spear point against the barrier specialist's throat before the man finished turning. Ivan entered the fight. His narrow sword created a dead zone, where storage, set skills, and external enchantments failed. Ren's shield dimmed. Quick Step vanished. Even the grip enhancement in his hands went quiet. Ivan smiled for the first time. He had expected Ren to become an F rank once the equipment disappeared. Ren's body remained S level. The first sword exchange drove Ivan backward. Ren used no name skill. He used the spear footwork from the tower, the shield angles Bran taught him, and the accelerated perception permanently absorbed after the mirror vault. Ivan's anti-storage field disabled active enchantments, not bones strengthened over months, or habits drilled into muscle. The duelist changed rhythm, sliding his sword around the shield and cutting Ren's upper arm. Ren answered with the spear butt against Ivan's ribs. Both stepped back. Ivan was technically better with a sword than Ren was with any single weapon. Ren stopped fighting his sword. He attacked the anti-storage device on Ivan's belt. Ivan protected it, narrowing his guard. Ren used the shield to trap the sword arm, abandoned the spear, and struck the device with his bare palm. Reinforced metal bent. The field flickered. For half a second, storage returned. Ren summoned a padded training hammer and placed it against Ivan's chest. The field restored too late. Ren drove the hammer forward with enough force to throw Ivan across the bridge without breaking his ribs. The duelist landed beside the other elites and did not rise immediately. Ren collected the injunction from the whetstones, folded it, and gave it back to them. Arsenal entered the Asham Cathedral with 8 minutes to spare. The 90-minute limit applied to registration and entry. Once the full team crossed and connected the stabilizers, the internal rupture clock reset to 8 hours. The battle inside lasted 6 hours. They returned with an S-rank purification bell, 43 permanent items, and proof that the gate's ash had been poisoning the reservoir long before Crown Fangs filed their delay. The investigation found that Ivan's written order authorized a containment hold, not an attack. Crown Fang's security director claimed he had approved non-lethal restraint without Cassian's knowledge, while Cassian publicly condemned the assault and paid for the 5 hunters' defense. The deniability kept Cassian from direct charges, but the association suspended the bridge team and opened a formal audit of Crown Fang Command. Then, White Citadel appeared. The gate formed above a frozen lake in the northern province and remained stable for only 11 days. For 6 months, Lyra and the Association Survey Office had compared every high-rank gate against Mina's registered mana profile. Survey technology could identify a broad reward category through the boss core's resonance, not the exact item. White Citadel was the first gate to show a Restoration class signature with a strong probability of compatibility. Mina's latest examination gave them perhaps 8 days before another heart-adjacent channel developed permanent scar tissue. The stabilizers had slowed her illness for years, but unstable mana had begun reaching the channels around her heart. She hid the pain until she dropped a glass in the kitchen and could not bend her fingers to pick up the pieces. Lyra showed Ren the scan in a quiet medical room. The turquoise lines on the image had narrowed to threads. Mina could survive longer than 8 days, but the next collapse would reduce what even a compatible crystal could restore. Another month of ordinary medicine might leave too little intact structure for a complete recovery. White Citadel required a paired stabilizing key. Crown Fangs owned one half. The National Association owned the other, but the gate's ice storm prevented entry unless both were activated together. Cassian offered a joint raid. He knew why Ren would accept. The agreement placed Association observers in the entry team and guaranteed each guild independent registration. Cassian could not openly remove Arsenal without losing his own access. Ren knew the arrangement was a trap. He also knew another suitable gate might not appear for years. Before leaving, he sat beside Mina's bed. Her dark bob had grown past her jaw. The blue veins at her throat glowed beneath the skin. She asked him not to promise success, because promises made waiting harder. Ren placed the bent Rat King's crown on the bedside table. "Keep the walnuts ready," he said. She touched one crooked point of the crown and told him to bring back a bowl that did not bite. White Citadel opened into a city buried under snow. Its towers leaned above streets, filled with statues of frozen soldiers. Wind moved between the buildings hard enough to lift armored hunters. The raid included 20 Crown Fangs, 12 Arsenal members, and 4 Association observers. Cassian fought at the front with his legendary spear, Sunspike. Gold light followed every thrust and pierced ice giants before they entered range. His mastery deserved its reputation. He also arranged the march so Arsenal took the western route through unstable streets, while Crown Fangs crossed the fortified Central Avenue. The separation was justified by the dungeon map. Nyx disliked it before they reached the first junction. He pointed out that snow covered the western door hinges, but not the central ones. The map had been altered after the last survey. Ren informed the observers. Their communication failed at that exact moment. A wall of blue ice rose between the two guilds. The western street collapsed. Arsenal fell into the buried city. Ren opened the wing cloak and caught Lyra before she struck the lower bridge. Bran drove his shield into a wall and created a barrier shelf for the others. Nyx used windstep boots to reach a hanging chain and guide the support team across. Below them, frozen soldiers awakened by the hundreds. Cassian's voice returned briefly through the broken channel. He claimed the separation mechanism was part of the dungeon and ordered Arsenal to hold position until Crown Fangs reached the boss. Nyx found a survey marker embedded beside the trigger plate. Its serial had been filed away, but the encryption key belonged to a mapping subcontractor used almost exclusively by Crown Fangs. The collapse had been prepared. The marker tied the route to their supply chain, though it did not prove who had given the order. Ren did not waste time proving it while an army climbed the walls. The first ranks carried frost axes. Ren shifted into the cold resistance set and dropped to the bridge. Armor break split the lead soldier's chest. The core inside released a cloud that froze the blade in place. He abandoned the weapon, summoned the old Rat King's Fang, and cut the next soldier behind the knee. Bran landed beside him and formed a shield line with 2 Arsenal tanks. Lyra spread warming threads through their armor. Nyx led the support unit toward a service tunnel he had seen during the fall. The frozen army pressed closer. Ren used the legendary wing cloak to reach the statues above the street and cut the command chains running between their helmets. Each broken chain stopped a row of soldiers. The maneuver required moving through open air where frost archers could see him. Arrows struck the cloak. Ice accumulated along one wing. Ren shifted to reflection armor before the weight pulled him down, angled the next volley into the command statue, then returned to the wing cloak once the path cleared. The team reached the service tunnel with 3 wounded hunters and no deaths. Inside, the temperature fell further. Ordinary heating stones cracked. The enchanted meal container Ren had looted months earlier remained warm because its fire rune had no safety limit. It had burned Mina's noodles so often that she called it the ruined pot. Ren placed it in the center of Bran's shield formation. The container heated the surrounding air, enough to keep fingers moving. Lyra looked at it, then at Ren. "Legendary equipment," he said. She chose not to argue while warming blood packs over the lid. Nyx mapped the buried route. The altered survey had directed them into a death basin, but the original architects built maintenance channels beneath every tower. Arsenal used those channels to bypass 2 Guardian halls and emerged near the upper citadel before Crown Fangs expected them. They found evidence along the way. Fresh explosive seals sold through a neutral supplier. Boot marks from a model issued to several major guilds. A broken communication jammer with its serial filed away, but with an internal crystal from the same lot purchased by the Crown Fang mapping subcontractor. Ren stored none of it in the unlimited full collection compartment because ordinary objects could not enter it. And his basic personal compartment was too small for a proper evidence chain. Mina's inventory discipline proved useful. Every Arsenal member carried sealed physical evidence bags for exactly this reason. At the summit, the ice giant stood before the treasure seal. It was 60 feet tall, armored in layered glacier plates. A white core shone behind its ribs. Cassian's team had already engaged it and lost 6 hunters to frostbite. Sunspike opened deep wounds, but each wound closed when the giant drew ice from the citadel floor. Cassian saw Arsenal emerge and understood that his trap had failed. He offered no apology. Ren looked at the association observers who had reached the summit with them. Their recording crystals were active again. He agreed. The ice giant swept one arm across the terrace. Cassian pierced the wrist with Sunspike, redirecting the blow above his formation. Ren used air step to reach the elbow and drove a fire blade between two plates. The heat opened a channel, but the giant repaired it instantly from the floor. Nyx found 4 frost roots connecting the boss to the citadel towers. Each root ran across a different terrace level. Cassian wanted to destroy the central core first. Ren assigned Arsenal to the roots. Bran held the lower root beneath falling ice. Lyra supported 2 teams at once through mana relays. Nyx crossed the upper walls with the smoke cloak, marking each vulnerable joint. Ren moved between levels using the wing cloak and old equipment that the giant did not recognize as threats. The ruined heating container melted the seal over the eastern root. The squeaking boots triggered a frost trap before Nyx stepped on it. The bent, short spear fit through an ancient maintenance slot where Sunspike's broad head could not enter. One root broke. The giant's left leg stopped repairing. Cassian changed tactics immediately. He drove Sunspike through the weakened knee and brought the boss down onto one hand. Crown Fang mages burned the exposed plates. The second root failed. The ice giant opened its mouth and released a freezing field. Air crystallized. 2 hunters fell before Lyra could reach them. Ren shifted to the full cold resistance set, but the temperature still locked his joints. He summoned the fire heart from the stadium, held it against his chest, and moved through the white storm. The giant saw him and raised its free hand. Ren used quickstep across a vertical sheet of ice. The hand struck the wall behind him. He changed to the wing cloak, rode the displaced air upward, and planted the armor break blade in the boss's shoulder. The third root broke beneath Bran's shield. The giant's chest stopped healing. Cassian leaped from the opposite tower, Sunspike gathering enough gold light to turn the snow around him to steam. His attack entered the chest wound and reached the outer core shell. The shell held. The impact threw Cassian away. He caught a ledge with one hand. The fourth root ran beneath the boss itself. Nyx reached the access point, but the giant's weight sealed the panel. Bran could not leave the lower defense. Lyra's reserves were near empty. Ren looked at the giant's planted hand, the cracked knee, and Cassian hanging above the abyss. He could let Cassian fall. The raid would become simpler. Ren used the wing cloak to catch him. Cassian's red eyes widened once before control returned. Ren threw him onto the terrace and told him to strike the left shoulder when the giant moved. Then, Ren shifted into the heavy shield set and charged the planted wrist. The giant brought its other hand down. Cassian attacked the shoulder as ordered. Sunspike diverted the arm by several feet. Ren hit the wrist with shield crash. Bran struck the same frost root from below, through the shared wall. The giant's hand lifted. Nyx drove the maintenance spike into the final node. Every frost root went dark. The ice giant's white core became solid. Ren shifted from shield to spear inside one forward step. Speed set for distance. Wing cloak for height. Penetration armor for the strike. Cassian's Sunspike hit first and cracked the core shell. Ren's black lance followed through the crack. The white core shattered. The giant collapsed across the citadel terrace, sending a wave of snow over both guilds. The treasure chamber opened inside its chest. The restoration crystal floated near the center, clear as ice and filled with slowly turning turquoise light. Its system panel compared the item against the patient profiles registered before entry and confirmed Ren Hale as a compatible recipient. Contribution order placed Ren first and Cassian second. Ren chose the crystal. Cassian chose a legendary spear core. The other survivors selected armor, skills, and elixirs. When the cycle ended, full collection gathered the remaining rewards, including the complete glacier set, a world gate key, cold-resistant stones, and dozens of items Cassian had intended to study. The system display recorded every transfer. So did the Association observers. Cassian watched Ren hold the restoration crystal rather than any weapon. For the first time, his certainty seemed unsettled. Ren had taken the one item with no military value and still received everything else. The evidence from the buried city proved deliberate sabotage and traced the equipment purchases to Crown Fang's security office, but it did not establish that Cassian personally issued the order. The security director and 3 executives were charged. The association revoked Crown Fang's private gate management licenses for 2 years, ordered compensation for Arsenal and the injured observers, and barred Cassian from national command while the review continued. He retained his personal hunter rank and Sunspike because neither depended on guild management authority. Ren did not stay for the hearings. Lyra prepared Mina in Arsenal's medical wing. The restoration crystal dissolved above her chest, releasing turquoise threads that entered every damaged channel. The process lasted 6 hours. Ren sat outside the glass room with the Rat King's crown in his lap. His right thumb moved over the bent gold edge until the skin reddened. At dawn, the blue veins at Mina's throat faded. Her eyes opened. The turquoise in them was bright enough to reflect the medical lights. She sat up without pain, looked at Ren through the glass, and asked whether he had brought the better bowl. Ren pressed his forehead to the door for 1 second before opening it. He placed the ice giant's silver crown on her bed. Mina examined the sharp edges and returned it. The Rat King's crown remained the walnut bowl. Ren had spent 5 years believing every choice ended at Mina's medicine. With her healed, the path ahead did not disappear. It became his own. He had seen too many porters left in corridors, too many healers discarded for small mana pools, and too many life-saving rewards vanish because guilds valued resale charts over people. Arsenal would change that system, not by asking Cassian's permission. 2 months after White Citadel, 7 great guilds gathered for the national S-rank raid selection. The Palace of 1,000 Blades had appeared above the old capital fortress. The World Gate key recovered from White Citadel opened its sealed outer registration ring. Inside, 7 weapon trials controlled access to a different final key, the one that granted entry to the first chamber of the World Labyrinth. Cassian entered only as a combatant at the head of a reduced Crown Fang delegation under Association observers. Public investigations had stripped him of operational authority, but no hunter in the country could deny his combat strength. Arsenal entered as the strongest guild outside the Old Alliance. Before entry, all 7 guilds signed the Old Alliance charter governing the palace. If the 2 highest contributors disputed command of the next international raid, a marked leadership trial would decide it before the palace released its final key. The clause could not alter system ownership or redistribute chosen rewards. Arsenal's lawyers disliked the rule, but refusing it would have barred the guild from the palace entirely. Ren no longer resembled the thin porter who had worn 2 different shoulder guards. He kept the silver streak over his left eye and the old strap scar on his wrist, but his frame had become lean and powerful. His standard combat coat was black with narrow silver plates that could separate during instant equipment shift. Light gray eyes watched the palace with the calm attention of someone who had learned that expensive walls still hid ordinary mechanisms. Mina attended from Arsenal's command room. Restored mana had left a faint turquoise ring around her pupils, and she now worked full days without the tremor that once made her hide broken cups. The palace trials began with the sword. Cassian's specialists dominated the first chamber through polished technique. Arsenal advanced through coordination. Ren used the sword well enough to pass, then improved as he watched how each guardian punished wasted motion. The second trial required a spear. Cassian cleared it faster than anyone, Sunspike drawing a straight gold line through ranks of armored phantoms. He looked almost untouchable within the weapon he had mastered. The third trial forbade spears. A chain maze pulled hunters from narrow bridges. Ren used the flexible weapon as a moving boundary, wrapping pillars and changing direction through tension rather than trying to strike every guardian. The fourth trial tested bows against targets hidden behind rotating walls. The fifth demanded shields in a chamber that changed gravity. The sixth tested twin blades against enemies that shared wounds. The seventh offered no chosen weapon at all. Hunters had to use whatever the floor placed in their hands. Ren received a farming scythe. Cassian received a short wooden club. The Guardian was a silver knight that altered range every time a hunter adjusted grip. Ren stopped treating the scythe like a sword. He hooked the knight's ankle, used the long handle to control its shoulder, and cut only when the curve aligned naturally. Cassian fought the club as though it were a shortened spear. His precision remained extraordinary, but the weapon resisted the movement. The Silver Knight broke his guard twice before he adapted. Ren cleared first. At the palace summit, the Lord of 1,000 Blades waited beneath a ceiling filled with suspended weapons. It copied no hunter. It had mastered every weapon itself. The battle lasted nearly an hour. The Lord opened with a greatsword that controlled the center of the hall. Ren used a bow to force its guard high, shifted to a spear to enter, then abandoned the spear when the greatsword trapped the shaft. A shield caught the counterstroke. Twin blades attacked the exposed wrist. The Lord changed to a chain and pulled Ren off balance. He answered with the staff, catching the chain around both ends and locking tension against the floor. The Guardian released the weapon and drew two curved swords before Ren could capitalize. Each change was faster than the last. Ren's accelerated perception showed him movements his body could not always match. His shoulder opened beneath one curved blade. A thrown axe broke two ribs through his defensive set. Lyra healed from the support line, while Bran held back the palace's summoned weapon spirits, and Nick searched the walls for the command seal. Cassian attacked from the opposite side with Sunspike. Against a single target, his pressure exceeded Ren's. Gold thrusts entered every opening and forced the Lord to defend. For several minutes, the two men fought together because either one alone would have been overwhelmed. The Lord eventually caught Sunspike between three rotating swords. Cassian refused to release it. His entire style, reputation, and mana circuit centered on that spear. The Guardian used the trapped weapon to drag him into a guillotine line. Ren shifted into the old light shield set and struck Sunspike's shaft sideways. The spear broke free. Cassian escaped the descending blades by inches. "You should carry another weapon," Ren said. Cassian's jaw tightened. "You should learn one properly." It drew a black halberd from the ceiling and split the hall floor. Nyx found the command seal beneath the suspended weapons. It rotated through 7 symbols matching the trial order. Each symbol made the Lord vulnerable only to the weapon tested by that floor. Ren adjusted immediately. Sword against the first seal, spear against the second, chain against the third, bow against the fourth, shield against the fifth, twin blades against the sixth, scythe against the seventh. Cassian could dominate one phase. Ren could answer all 7. The final sequence pushed instant equipment shift beyond anything he had attempted. Armor and weapon changed between heartbeats. The sword cut the wrist seal. The spear pierced the chest. The chain pulled the Guardian beneath a falling blade. The bow struck the eye at 30 yards. The shield broke its stance. Twin blades opened the core casing. The 7th symbol appeared. Ren summoned the plain farming scythe from the trial rack. He hooked the Lord's damaged core and pulled it free. The Guardian fell among 1,000 silent weapons. The treasure hall held relics from every style. Hunters made their choices in contribution order. Ren selected the palace's universal weapon in sight. Cassian took a core that strengthened Sunspike. Full Collection gathered the remaining relics. Cassian stepped between Ren and the exit. He claimed that national security required distribution among the 7 guilds. The old alliance leaders supported him. Association observers reminded them that system ownership was final. Cassian could not challenge ownership, so he invoked the leadership trial written into the charter all 7 guilds had signed before entry. Cassian placed Crown Fang authority over the alliance at stake. Ren accepted after the observers confirmed that every item already chosen would remain with its owner. Cassian raised Sunspike. The other leaders moved beyond the marked duel circle. None wished to stand between the 2 strongest hunters in the country. Their fight was shorter than the boss battle and more personal. Cassian's first thrust crossed the hall like a beam of gold. Ren reflected part of it with mirror armor and shifted aside from the rest. The second thrust curved, a technique Cassian had hidden during White Citadel. It pierced Ren's wing cloak and pinned one side to the wall. Ren cut the fabric free and changed to a shield. Cassian shattered it with 3 strikes. Sunspike remained superior to every single weapon Ren possessed. Ren stopped offering single weapons. He caught the spear on a chain, released the chain before Cassian reversed it, struck the shaft with a hammer, shifted to twin blades inside the rebound, and cut the gold mana line feeding the point. Cassian repaired the line and drove forward. Ren used quick step past him, changed to the bow, and fired from behind. Cassian spun Sunspike and split the arrow. The broken halves concealed a thin mana thread attached to the shaft. Ren pulled. The thread altered the spear's angle by 1 inch. Cassian's thrust missed Ren's heart. The armor break blade entered beneath Cassian's shoulder guard and stopped against skin. Cassian froze. Ren could have driven deeper. He withdrew instead. Sunspike fell from Cassian's hand. The old alliance ended that day. Cassian retained his rank and his weapon, but Crown Fangs lost any remaining claim to direct national raids. Arsenal became the country's leading guild by confirmed combat record, emergency response, and active membership. During the weeks before the World Labyrinth opened, Ren and Lyra re-registered his equipment as modular loadouts. Instant equipment shift could now replace individual approved pieces instead of only whole sets, but mixed changes consumed more mana and placed greater strain on his channels. Ren practiced the partial transitions until he could perform them without misplacing a boot or locking a shoulder plate. Among the palace rewards was a celestial dragon egg. Everyone expected a legendary mount. The shell opened 3 weeks later. A blue lizard, the length of Ren's forearm, climbed out, sneezed sparks, and refused to fly higher than his knee. Nyx named it Emperor. Ren objected. The dragon bit his boot and kept the name. The first World Labyrinth gate opened in the 13th month. 11 more appeared across 11 countries over the next 3 days. They were not simultaneous deadlines. Each Guardian key extended the labyrinth's stability and unlocked the next set of entrances. International teams had 1 month to complete the chain. Every Guardian chamber contained 12 world relics, 1 path key, permanent elixirs, mass barriers, and specialized equipment. An ordinary raid could preserve only 1 reward per survivor. The rest would vanish, making later stages nearly impossible. Before the operation, the 12 participating governments signed a crisis protocol built from Ren's earlier emergency aid memoranda. Local hunters remained free to choose personal equipment, elixirs, and class items. The 12 strategic world relics in each chamber would be left unclaimed for full collection and logged to an audited international reserve under Ren's system ownership. Ren shared a read-only system manifest for those marked relics, allowing the Joint Council to verify them without opening the rest of his private storage. In return, every participating nation received treaty access to those relics during declared gate emergencies. At each chamber, Ren reserved his ordinary selection for the path key. Full collection then secured every unchosen relic and support item after the local hunters completed their choices. Full collection changed the mathematics of the entire crisis. Ren did not command every national team. He established a shared plan. Local hunters defended their cities and opened routes. Arsenal carried specialized kits. Ren registered in each Guardian raid, contributed directly, and remained present for every boss death. Travel occurred through the labyrinth itself after the first key activated the transit halls. The 12 battles formed 4 linked trials. The first group tested speed. A storm serpent moved between the towers of Singapore faster than radar could follow. A glass falcon above Morocco attacked only shadows. A rail beast beneath Germany accelerated every time it met resistance. Ren used speed gear against none of them in the same way. He trapped the serpent's path with mana threads and allowed it to pull him through the storm. He fought the falcon at dawn, when long shadows revealed its false turns. Against the rail beast, he ordered every hunter to stop attacking and removed friction from the final tunnel with ice oil. The creature accelerated beyond its ability to turn and buried itself in the Guardian Seal. 3 keys entered Ren's storage. 36 world relics followed. The second group tested defense across populated areas. A walking fortress advanced toward Busan. A coral titan rose beside Rio de Janeiro. A stone choir in Prague shattered buildings through resonance. Bran became the center of the international defense formation. His light guard set had evolved through dozens of compatible rewards, but the injured right arm still required its black brace. He positioned barriers where structures could carry pressure, and refused heroic stands that protected empty streets, while civilians remained exposed. Ren handled the main bodies. He climbed the walking fortress through artillery fire, and destroyed its steering core. He used reflection armor to redirect the Coral Titan's pressure wave into the open sea. Against the stone choir, Nyx mapped the resonance pattern, while Lyra kept thousands of defenders conscious through distributed healing relays. 3 more guardians fell. The third group tested elements. A fire queen beneath Iceland inverted heat and cold. A poison moon over India changed antidote requirements every minute. A thunder whale crossed the plains of Argentina inside a permanent storm. The full collection of old resistance stones mattered more than any legendary weapon. Arsenal equipped local units from physical transport vaults, prepared before entry. Mina directed distribution from the International Command Center, opening numbered containers according to Lyra's compatibility charts. She never touched Ren's soul storage. Every item she issued had been transferred and registered weeks earlier. Ren fought the Fire Queen by changing not only armor, but circulation. Cold resistance for her flames. Fire resistance when she inverted the chamber. The ruined heating container stabilized a frozen medical station again, earning a formal world relic label that Mina crossed out and replaced with ruined pot. The poison moon required 12 different antidotes, while the same treasure sequence also contained the next path key, storm anchors, and mass barriers needed for later chambers. A 12-person ordinary team could spend every choice preserving the antidotes and lose all of those strategic tools, or save the tools and watch some of the cure disappear. Full Collection had preserved the complete antidote set from the preceding chamber together with everything else. Lyra identified the order by watching changes in blood color, then administered the 12 doses across the formation. The Thunder Whale could not be reached from the ground. Ren used the Wing Cloak, Air Step, and 3 storm anchors to climb through lightning. He landed between the creature's fins, reflected a bolt into its own conductive spine, and opened the core for the Argentine spear team. 9 keys unlocked the final group. Space became unreliable. The 10th Guardian separated hunters into runes that moved every 30 seconds. The 11th erased distance, making one step cross a mile and the next cross an inch. The 12th existed in 12 countries at once, sharing one life across every gate. Nyx's fear became an instrument. He sensed the room shifts before the system announced them, and marked safe transitions with false trail dust. Bran held defensive nodes in spaces Ren could not reach. Lyra linked teams through healing threads that remained connected across short spatial breaks. Ren earned spatial resistance from the 10th chamber and used it in the 11th. He stopped trusting sight and measured distance by the pressure in his mana channels. A step that looked short could tear a person across the arena. Ren anchored himself with a chain relic, advanced one controlled pulse at a time, and reached the distance core. The final Guardian, the 12-faced Warden, required simultaneous strikes in 12 locations. The system treated the central transit hall and all 11 distant faces as one linked boss arena. So, Ren's registration and contribution in the central hall applied to the shared death and treasure sequence. Ren could not be present everywhere. For months, that fact would have made him search for a way to control every position himself. He trusted the teams instead. Bran commanded the defense faces. Lyra coordinated the elemental faces. Nyx identified which spatial image carried the true damage link. National leaders held their assigned keys. Ren fought the central face in the transit hall, where every attack echoed into the other 11 battles. The Warden changed resistance each time one country struck out of sequence. Mina called the timing from command based on 12 live feeds. 3, 2, 1. Now. 12 keys turned. 12 teams attacked. Ren shifted through 7 weapon styles during the central strike, matching each pulse traveling through the Warden's body. Spear, shield, bow, chain, twin blades, sword, scythe. The final pulse reached the core. The 12-faced Warden broke in every country at the same instant. The last treasure chambers opened. 12 guardians had produced 12 relics each. Because every nation followed the crisis protocol, all 144 strategic world relics entered Ren's full collection compartment and were logged to the shared reserve. The path keys, mass barriers, spatial skills, elixirs, and support items left after the registered hunters made their choices followed them. By the time the world labyrinth closed, Ren's body measured between S and SS without equipment. In full combat sets, international analysts placed him at SSS. He was already the strongest hunter in the world. When the Warden died, the 12 physical keys returned from the national stations and joined into a single black ring around Ren's wrist. Its system description showed one final function. The ring could project 12 temporary relay seals for linked suppression nodes, while the original keys remained in the ring. The relays carried no attack power. The black ring opened the final gate above the Atlantic. The Rift Emperor's Gate covered the horizon. Its lower edge touched the ocean, while the upper arch disappeared into cloud. Cities along 4 coasts saw the same black structure because the gate occupied folded space. Every country that had completed the labyrinth received an entry corridor. Inside stood a ruined world built around one central palace. The Rift Emperor fed on gates themselves. If it crossed into Earth, closing one portal would no longer matter. New dungeons would open wherever its body touched reality. The international plan divided the battlefield into layers. Bran commanded the defensive node beneath the palace. Lyra supported the national formations through a network of healer relays. Nyx led scouts through the shifting inner corridors to find the spatial heart. Mina remained at the protected command station on Earth, directing physical reserves stored in 12 mobile vaults. Ren entered the central throne hall. The Rift Emperor waited above a floor made from fused treasure pedestals. Its armor changed color with every breath. 6 arms held 6 weapons, and a ring of empty space rotated behind its head. It spoke through system text rather than a voice. One path is enough for the strong. Ren drew the first black dagger he had ever owned. That depends on the path. The Emperor's first phase suppressed blades. Every sword and dagger in the hall lost its edge. The Rat King's fangs struck the armor like dull bone. Ren released it before the Emperor's counterattack and shifted to the tower spear set. A spatial axe split the floor where he had stood. Ren used Quick Step to cross the crack, drove the spear beneath one armored plate, and felt the point bite. The Emperor rotated the ring behind its head. The second phase suppressed piercing weapons. Ren's spear became heavy and harmless inside the field. He shifted to the shield set and met a 6-armed assault. Each impact came from a different angle. Bran's training guided his feet. Ren did not block each weapon head-on. He turned the shield, let one strike collide with another, and used the Emperor's force to open the central guard. Shield crash hit the chest. The Emperor changed phase. Defense skills vanished. Ren released the shield before it became dead weight. The wing cloak opened and carried him above a sweeping blade. The Emperor suppressed flight. One wing folded instantly. Ren fell 40 feet. He used the old chain relic to catch a broken throne and swung beneath the next attack. Ren released at the right moment, landed on a tilted pedestal, and fired the palace bow into the joint beneath the lowest arm. Ranged attacks disappeared in the next phase. Every phase erased the style that had just succeeded. An ordinary specialist would have become useless after one change. Cassian fought in the outer hall with Sunspike, and was forced to retreat whenever piercing suppression spread through the palace. national mages lost entire spell schools. Tanks found their barriers turned transparent and weak. Ren kept moving. Hammer against blade suppression, chain against impact suppression. Twin blades when magic vanished. Elemental relics, when physical force failed. Reflection armor against beams. Spatial resistance, when the throne hall folded and placed the ceiling beneath his feet. The Emperor adapted faster each time. At 70% health, it began suppressing 2 categories at once. Ren shifted into combinations rather than full sets. Fire-resistant chestplate, speed boots, reflection bracer, wing cloak on one shoulder, penetration gauntlet on the other. Instant equipment shift strained under the mixed registration. Mana burned along his ribs. Lyra's distant healing thread reached him through the palace network and stabilized the channels. The Emperor struck the thread with a spatial blade. The link broke. Outside, the palace corridors rearranged. Bran's defensive node came under attack from creatures spawned out of discarded weapons. Nyx's scouts lost 3 routes at once. Mina's voice entered Ren's receiver. Vault 7 had mass barriers. Vault 3 held the anti-space anchors. Vault 11 contained healing stones compatible with Lyra's relay. She assigned runners and opened the physical compartments in sequence. The reserves moved because Ren had trusted other people with them before the battle began. Bran received the barriers and locked the defensive node. Lyra rebuilt her network through the healing stones. Nyx used an anti-space anchor to mark the corridor that continued moving when every false route stopped. Ren's healing thread returned. The Emperor reached 50% health. Its 6 weapons dissolved. The throne hall became a field of floating black mirrors. Ren saw hundreds of versions of himself. Some carried the Rat King's dagger. Some wore the palace armor. One sat on the squeaking stone throne with an expression of deep disappointment. The Emperor copied his arsenal from memory. Mirror. Ren attacked with quick step. The lessons of the Mirror Vault returned. Ren did not answer his strongest pattern with something stronger. He changed rhythm. The old squeaking boots formed around his feet. One step sounded early, the other late. Reflections attacked echoes that did not match his body. Ren used False Trail to scatter 3 mana signatures. The copies divided. He entered Reflection Armor and redirected their own ranged attacks across the mirror field. The Emperor suppressed illusion resistance. Ren closed his eyes. Accelerated perception was more than sight. Air moved around real mass. The floor carried pressure. The copies had images and mana, but only the central body displaced dust. Ren crossed the field with the first quick step he had learned in an association practice room. The skill was weaker than his later movement techniques. Its simple burst did not trigger the Emperor's advanced suppression until he was already inside the guard. The Rat King's fang entered the seam beneath the Emperor's arm. The old dagger still could not pierce the core, but it marked the real body. Nyx reached the spatial heart at that moment. He found it behind 12 doors, 11 of which led back to themselves. The true door frightened him before he touched it. That was how he knew it mattered. The empty ring behind the Emperor's head stopped rotating. Bran drove one projected relay seal into the lower defensive node. Lyra flooded the international formations with stored healing mana. 11 national teams activated the remaining relay seals in their assigned nodes. The seals were positioned, but the black ring could not lock the suppression channels, while the spatial heart continued rotating. The Emperor entered its final phase. Every suppression field activated at once. Weapons dulled, spells failed, armor lost enchantment, space thickened. The wing cloak hung like ordinary fabric. The throne hall pressed down under the weight of a creature that had erased every advantage it understood. Ren stood in plain black clothing, with the strap scar visible around his right wrist. The Emperor descended, certain that the arsenal had ended. Ren's physical body remained. Permanent elixirs were part of his muscles. Core saturation had rebuilt his bones. Weapon insight lived in memory. 14 months of training did not vanish when an enchantment stopped glowing. The Emperor swung one enormous fist. Ren stepped inside, caught the wrist with both hands, and turned using Bran's shield footwork. The impact split the floor behind him. He drove an elbow into the exposed joint, moved to the back, and used the broken arm as leverage against the shoulder. The Emperor tore free and struck him across the hall. Ren hit a treasure pedestal hard enough to crack it. Blood filled his mouth. Lyra's healing could not cross the suppression field. He rose before the Emperor reached him. The next exchange contained no skills. Ren used the 7 styles without their weapons. Spear footwork created direct lines. Sword timing controlled the center. Chain movement redirected force. Bow discipline measured distance. Shield posture received impact. Twin blade rhythm attacked from alternating sides. The sight's hook became a grip behind the knee. The Emperor was stronger. Ren was more practiced at changing. He pulled the creature off balance and drove it against the marked seam where the Rat King's fang remained lodged. Outside the hall, Nyx destroyed the spatial heart. Suppression flickered. 1 second. Ren called the arsenal. The wing cloak opened first and lifted him above the Emperor. Reflection armor formed over his chest. The black ring separated into 12 world keys that circled his arms. Palace Insight aligned 7 weapon paths. Armor break gathered along the black lance that appeared in his hands. The Emperor restored suppression. Too late. Ren descended through the marked seam. The lance entered the core. The 12 keys flashed in sequence, each holding 1 suppression channel open through its projected relay. They added no force to the attack. Palace Insight aligned Ren's 7 trained paths. Armor break widened the marked seam, and his own accumulated strength drove through the exposed core. Cracks spread through the Emperor's body and into the throne hall. It tried to change phase again. Ren shifted weapons while the lance remained inside. Hammer force widened the break. Chain energy held the core in place. Twin blades cut the supporting channels. The first quick step drove the final pulse through his body into the strike. The Rift Emperor shattered. Silence crossed the ruined world. The palace roof opened. A treasure chamber larger than Cairo Stadium rose from beneath the throne. Nearly 2,000 rewards filled the sky. Weapons, armor, world cores, healing relics, city barriers, skill stones, seeds from dead worlds, and keys to gates that had never opened on Earth floated in ordered rings. Every surviving hunter, whose registration mark recorded contribution to the Emperor operation, received 1 private choice window, including defenders and rescue units outside the central hall. The windows opened in parallel, with contribution order used only to resolve competing claims. Bran selected a World Shield core. Lyra chose a life relay. Nyx took a spatial compass, then looked guilty, until Ren reminded him that full collection did not need his sacrifice. Machinal leaders and surviving hunters chose 1 reward each. Ren's ordinary turn came first by contribution. He selected a small restoration seed capable of repairing land damaged by gates. The final hunter made a choice. The system paused. 1,042 rewards are scheduled for destruction. Unique function, full collection. Collect all remaining rewards. Light moved across the ruined world. Every remaining reward entered his storage. The system count climbed beyond 1,000, while international cameras recorded it. City barriers, medical relics, legendary weapons, and materials that would have vanished became part of Arsenal's reserve. The Rift Emperor's palace collapsed only after the last item was safe. Ren returned through the Atlantic Gate, carrying no visible treasure. The storage weighed nothing. The world waiting outside understood the weight anyway. Arsenal's new headquarters opened 6 months later. The central tower contained training halls, clinics, appraisal rooms, classrooms for low-rank hunters, and a physical reserve protected by the treaty that grew from the emergency memoranda and World Labyrinth Protocol. Ren retained system ownership, while quarterly international audits tracked every strategic item transferred into physical storage. World relics could not be sold privately, and participating countries received emergency access through a joint council. Distribution followed written rules. Emergency tools went where they saved lives. Combat relics went to people trained to use them. Permanent enhancements were recorded, tested, and matched by Lyra's compatibility division. Bran commanded global defense teams. His injured arm still wore the black brace because he considered throwing away useful equipment a bad habit learned from Ren. Lyra became the leading raid healer in the world and remained capable of silencing Ren with one look whenever he approached unknown elixirs. Nyx led Arsenal's scouts. He still became frightened before everyone else. The difference was that entire command rooms listened when he did. Mina managed reserve logistics. Her turquoise eyes no longer faded after a long day. She kept the Rat King's crown in her office and filled it with walnuts during meetings. During the ongoing 2-year management suspension, after funding the ordered compensation and accepting continuing association audits, Cassian rebuilt Crown Fangs as a smaller combat guild with no private authority over gates. He never joined Arsenal, and Ren never forgave the attempts to sacrifice his people. They worked together only under public emergency command and independent observers when a gate required Sunspike. Ren would not waste a useful fighter when a city was at risk. Cassian also began carrying a short sword, though he refused to discuss why. In the entrance museum, a glass case displayed Ren's old backpack, the bent spear, the cracked glasses, the squeaking boots, and the Rat King's stone throne. A young F-rank recruit dropped a box of empty potion vials on the stairs beneath the display. The vials rolled across the floor. Several senior hunters turned toward the sound. The recruit froze, waiting for laughter or punishment. Ren crouched and began collecting the bottles. The recruit hurried to help. He apologized 3 times before Ren placed the last vial back in the box. Ren asked why he had joined Arsenal. The young man admitted that every other guild wanted him as a porter. Ren looked at the recruit's careful hands, the way he had protected the glass even while falling, and the repair tools arranged by size on his belt. He offered him a fair assessment in the equipment workshop. From the hallway, the small blue dragon emperor swooped toward Ren's shoulder, lost courage at waist height, and climbed the rest of the way using his coat. During the evening ceremony, the government presented Ren with a World Service Medal. Emperor stole it before the cameras finished focusing and flew 3 feet above the stage, the highest flight of his life. Bran tried to catch him. Nyx provided advice from a safe distance. Lyra threatened to withhold snacks. Mina laughed until she had to sit on the stone throne, which still squeaked with royal misery. Later, she brought dinner in the old self-heating container. The noodles were burned again. A system window appeared above Ren's hand. Estimated reward count for newly detected boss? Unknown. Ren looked through the headquarters windows at the hangars, reserve towers, and loading crews preparing for another gate. He took the old backpack from the museum case and tested the straps against his shoulders. Then, we will need a larger warehouse.